What's up, guys? The ALGS offseason is finally over.
Needs to stay alive. Melee does it!
Welcome to our new series, the ALGS Rundown. I'm Tiff, and this week we're going to be covering all things year 4 of the ALGS Pro League.
He finds two with the one clips. He's going to make it 3!
Now, as a reminder, each Pro League region consists of 30 teams, 22 teams invited by ALGS, and 8 teams from the preseason qualifiers. The Pro League regular season prize pool is $1 million divided evenly amongst the 4 regions. Those teams will then battle it out in 2 8-week-long splits, with the top teams from each region then advancing on to the playoffs with the ultimate goal of making it to the ALGS Championship stage. Now, let's jump into the biggest headlines in the ALGS Pro League. One of the biggest questions this offseason has been what team will top IGL Sweet join for ALGS Year 4. That anticipation ends with the new era of LG Apex unfolding. With Nathan on the bench, it's been years since this iconic duo has split up. Can Sweet lead his way to the top again alongside Funk and Slayer? Get ready for an exciting chapter as this formidable team steps into the arena. That clears the way for Oversleeper's qualification to Pro League. They're underdogs, but they have great potential. Baudry, the 16-year-old M&K prodigy, must be keen to show us what he is capable of. Alongside former Splitgate pros JP and Charmander, this team is an eye-catcher. His Watson returns to competitive. After a short break to recharge his batteries, he's back with Furia, and this time alongside his ride-or-die Keon. Add in Madness to complete the 3, this team has some serious firepower. Furia is taking a risk on an untested 3, but this trio comes pre-installed with more synergy than most teams. XSET made a big move grabbing roller prodigy Koifel, whose Pro League debut rocketed him to the tops of conversations along roller veterans like Jen Burton, Verhulst, and Effect. If he maintains his solid form, this could result in XSET moving from a solid top 5 worldwide to LAN winners. Dark Zero, a 3-time LAN winning team, isn't resting on their laurels. Despite a successful year 3, they've opted for a big change, bringing in Sykes to replace Zainu. Is this the key to reclaiming their championship form? Moist Esports has made shockwaves in 2 regions by leaving APAC South to follow Dark Zero to NA. They've also picked up Guild, the last free agent from NRG. And we're expecting them to gel seamlessly, but will they stake a claim in NA? Year 3 LAN Dark Horse, the Dojo, are back with the same roster: Timmy, Designful, and Enemy. There are a lot of eyes on this team coming into week 1 of NA Pro League, and they're not to be underestimated. Some say it was beginner's luck, but others are confident that they're going to make it back to LAN and best their 4th place finish at Champs. How can we talk about the NA region without mentioning TSM? Unarguably the most successful ALGS team of all time. They've made themselves a target early on in Split 1 with the wildcard Meat Lovers. Will this affect their ability to qualify for Split 1 playoffs? Or will they chase off Meat Lovers away from their POIs? There's a power vacuum forming in APAC South following Moist Esports' move to NA. Everyone expects Primus Commanda, formerly Blackhand, to be the top contender, but will they stand their ground or will a new team stamp their authority on the region? Divine has formed a team of 3 APAC veterans. Pricey comes out of retirement alongside Wei and Shady. With tons of experience on the team, they've got the potential to make a real splash in the region. If Primus Commanda can't find their way to the top, then Boogie Borders will be happy to take over. Former Onyx members Raki and Fussy join forces with star controller player Panavi to make a bid for the top spot in the region after spending the last couple of years in Moist Shadow. Time to speculate about the King's downfall. Fnatic is rebuilt around Yuka F, Sadzuki, and Laika. Yuka F hands over the macro reins to Laika, and we're all waiting to find out if this is the right move, or is this gonna open up the region for a massive battle to take their shot at the crown? First in line to take that shot will be North Eption. After some revolving door roster changes, Taida, Reizi, and Yuka Predator want to step up expectations and leave their mark on the global stage. They'll have it all to prove as they set their sights on their former teammate Satsuki and look to dethrone Fnatic and claim the #1 spot for themselves. Crazy Raccoon is back. After heartbreak as Raz got called up for military service, the team did not compete at the Year 3 ALGS Championships. For Year 4, Crazy Raccoon has signed the fan favorite team Gambare Otosan, a staple on the LAN stage. Dogma, Juzna, and Jeonghee have an org, and Crazy Raccoon has a team expected to perform. Coming off a hiatus, Matsutasu has returned to Pro League, this time to join alongside Shunmi and Suda Taiken underneath that Reignite banner. Experienced and talented, they will have to get comfortable together to shoot for the top. After all, Matsutasu has a legacy to uphold of finishing top 10 at every LAN he's been to, and it would be a shame to break the streak now. In EMEA, we've got a brand new org, ESG, looking to make a splash in the region by grabbing up Lufka, Light, and Blast alongside Coach Luke. Aftermath Esports have crossed the pond from South America to EMEA. Stelizi, Kirev, and Flash have kept their ALGS dreams alive and will be planning to give the fans in this new region a reason to remember their names. EMEA #1 seed Element 6 has a fresh new look, adding in 2 new talents from the roller pool, Cracked and Slab. Element 6 has been dominant in the EMEA region, but has never been able to swipe that trophy. Swinny will be hoping this new roster gives them the juice to go all the way. Longtime fans of the EMEA ALGS will be stoked to welcome back Bryn. Popular among pros, this hot prospect back in 2022 vanished from the scene. Like a phoenix, he's risen from the ashes and playing alongside Sir Del and Noises on the team The Full English. This trio will want to pick back up where they left off and remind fans why they loved him. Aurora also lean into the Year 4 Phoenix storyline, confirming the return of MNK legend Hardeki, joining the duo of Impulse and Oirein. When you take an unconventional and aggressive playstyle and add in a dash of raw MNK talent, sparks will fly. Get ready for an exciting ride as Shiv and Mandy step into the ALGS fray with 40% worse. Despite challenges like Shiv's injury, Mandy's retirement, and a tense last game in preseason qualifier, the team, including Zerifer, is driven by motivation. With no expectations and everything at stake, they're set to bring an all-out, unstoppable energy to the ALGS Pro League. With all this and more, we're looking forward to the best year of Apex Legends esports ever. Find us on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and be sure to follow us for the start of Year 4 ALGS Pro League on January 20th. See you there.
Oh my god. No way you're gonna do this, Jen, no way! Can he 1v1 on the Watsy now? His voice gets the opening knock! The CEO with a hostile takeover! TSM are your champions!
And it only goes up from there. Hopefully we fall down from the heavens yet again in year 4. I have a feeling we will. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the ALGS Split 1. My name is Rain Day, and as we kick off a brand new year in our favorite Battle Royale esport in the world, I want to give you guys a shout to a Happy New Year yourselves, because guess what? We all know a new year brings new beginnings. It brings new opportunities, new resolutions, and maybe new ways of thinking about yourselves. Same goes for the ALGS. Will a brand new team become a household name? Will a contender finally become a champion? And will a favorite create another dynasty? We're here to find out. Last year, we saw TSM rise to the top of the ranks. Can they do it again? Or will we see in this 1,000-step journey a new step for a new team pave a new destiny? All of that about to unfold. So grab your popcorn and get ready. It's going to be one hell of a ride. I'm excited to start this show off with you all. And of course, I can't do it alone, baby. It's the ALGS. We got to bring in some of the best in the business. And first, let me introduce my main man, one of the most talented play-by-play broadcasters in this industry, Mark Onset Hatcher. Mark, it's year 4.
Well, firstly, you're too kind, and firstly, to everybody who's watching right now, welcome back to the ALGS. It has been so long since champs. I've been waiting for this moment, waiting for Pro League to kick back off again, and I think there's a lot of general feelings of the same kind from everybody who's tuning in today. We've got a new season ahead of us. We've got new stories to write. We've got updates to Storm Point. We've got a new legend, and of course, we have hundreds of team changes. So a lot of expectation on a lot of teams and a lot of unpredictable things about to go down.
It is hard to top what year 3 was, but a man who ended year 3 maybe as exciting as we are starting year 4 is none other than your duo, Dan Gaskin. Congratulations on your esports award for color commentary, all the work you done last year. Ready to step it up this year?
Yeah, couldn't have done it without the team, though. Everyone just driving forward and making Apex big on the map, and we're going to make it even bigger and better this year. There's been so many team changes, roster manias kicked off. I don't know who is going to be the best team leading into it and at the end of it all, but I can't wait to find out.
You know, what's interesting, guys, is sometimes it's just nice to relax. You know, we all came in hype. You know, we got our coffee in. We're ready to go. Mark, I mean, it might be like midnight for you. Dan, you're finally waking up on the West Coast with me early in the morning. But this, for everyone watching, is going to be a little bit of an extended top of show. We've got a lot to cover, a lot of new things that have happened in the offseason. It's been many months, but we're excited to get through to it. And of course, one of the best ways to catch you up if you're used to watching the ALGS, or if you've just not watched us in a while, is to learn exactly how Split 1 is going to go. So let's throw to a quick video to give you all you need to know.
The Pro League is comprised of 2 regular season splits. The Split 1 regular season features 4 regions made up of 30 teams, seeded into 3 groups of 10 teams each. Pro League teams will begin by competing in a triple round-robin format, where each group plays a match series against every other group 3 times. After these matches have been completed, the top 20 teams, according to the regular season standings, will compete in the regional finals. At the conclusion of the regional finals, 40 teams, including teams from all 6 ALGS regions, will have qualified for the Split 1 playoffs.
You know, I was wondering why I didn't get the call to do the narration each year. I'm just waiting for that call, guys. And now I realize you just got Mark to do it. I mean, unbelievable. He did a great job, though. I can't lie. So let me try to help you out as well. If you didn't get all the info, or you just want to know dates for when we're doing it, take out your phone. I got my little Nessie back there. That's made by Dia's partner as well. Shout out to Dia. And go ahead and use that QR code to get a landing page that will tell you every single date will be live, every single opportunity to watch the ALGS, and also all information on how do people qualify, where are they qualifying, and where we're going for the Split 1 playoffs. All secrets that we will unveil as time goes by. But fellas, let's bring it back. Let's start talking about it. There's a new addition as well, Dan, that I want you to give our audience information on. It's bonus points. There's a new way to score points in the ALGS this year.
What's more fun than extra points? So bonus points are going to be available to teams in this year. So bonus points, now bear in mind, there are 2 different things. We have series standings and overall standings. Firstly, bonus points, they're awarded to your overall standings after the series has taken place. Now, how do you get those bonus points? It's right there in front of you. If you win your group by more than 50 points than the second place team, you get a bonus point, 1 for you. And if you manage to win higher than 50% of your matches, you also get 1 extra bonus point for each match that you win. So if you win 5 matches, you would get 2 extra bonus points, and you'd probably win by 50 points as well, so you'd probably end up with 3 bonus points awarded to your overall standing. So this is great news for everyone to just keep focused, even if they're dominating Rain Day, and we know what the players are like. They're competitive. We're going to see who's going to get the first game points.
Absolutely. I feel like it's going to be a trophy, a mini trophy throughout the days that we're playing here, because, you know, we know tension starts to rise as we get closer to that 10th and final day to see who qualifies. But this is going to be a fun one to hold over your head and say, yeah, we're the first team in ALGS history to grab some bonus points. That's how good we are. You know, I think this kind of leads us into our next topic, which is kind of the theme of the start of the season. The team has labeled it as the Great Reset because we've seen so many shifts in this offseason for new teams and new directions for old teams. And it's felt as if many teams have realized this is our time to make a move. There's no way we're going to get this done unless we do so. And Mark, I mean, just visually with a beautiful graphic, you can see there's been a lot of shifts.
It certainly has. I mean, this is just a look at some of the partner teams that we have in the ALGS and the changes that they have made. And you can see the graphic kind of indicates a lot of the chaos that has gone down. Teams swapping over, players swapping over, finding new homes. I mean, we saw Xset, you know, they've got Koifel now joining them, with Dark Zero picking up Sykes from that team. And then you see the new look, LG, led by Sweet. Now he's got Funk and Slayer alongside in the 2 Roller Demons, and then the Dojo, of course, with DSG now. It has been, this is just a very small part of what's gone down. I feel like 95% of teams across both North America and EMEA have made a change, which gives us that unpredictability ahead of the season.
Big shout out to Tanya G. You can see the @ there on the bottom right corner. Always love when our community helps inspire our professional scene. So again, big shout out to Tanya G. And hey, whatever you make when you're tweeting at us, it may end up on a show one day. Let's talk though about EMEA, since this is where we're starting today. The familiar faces, this might be the reason so many resets have happened across the board in Apex, knowing they've got to compete with the likes of Alliance, Hockey, Suki, and Effect. Undoubtedly the most consistent, in my opinion, contender for a championship or a playoff split win that we've seen last year. And they are one of the only teams that have stayed together throughout this chaos, coming in as a major favorite today and this year. Aurora, well, no more Fire Beavers. They've taken 9 Impulse, OJ Rain, and reignited with that fire one of the most legendary stories in all of EMEA. The story of a young man named Hardeki, who is back in the limelight, and maybe with the right duo to support him in getting back to his star-studded ways. That will be something we keep our eyes on. And Orglis and Hungry, normally we're used to calling them vexed. They've been vexed at playoff situations and championships. So they've gone into this roster, into the season, looking to change their roster, but they didn't know they were going to change their org 2 days ago. Vexed, unfortunately, is no longer a part of Matafe, Unlucky, and Kinda's journey. And that led them to a very specific thought. They felt that this was going to be a good year, but they needed to make some changes. So we had a chance to sit down with Matafe and see exactly what kind of year 4 is set out to be.
We had a really bad end to the previous season, so we decided to take a step back, trial a lot of new and upcoming talent in Europe, and there was only one that stood out, and it was Kinda, so it was a no-brainer to go with him. Kinda is a very versatile player, and on our team his role will be both helping Unlucky with fragging, as well as playing the controller legend Catalyst, and sometimes also anchoring and creating space for the team. We have taken the off-season extremely seriously after the previous season's end, and I'm more than confident that we have outworked every single other team in our region, so the only acceptable result is first place in Europe.
High expectations for Matafe and squad. We'll see if they can contend with it. But speaking of that, they're not just the only teams playing, Mark. There are some new contenders here who equally have a chance to make some noise.
Yeah, I think these teams are the teams who you're looking at and maybe being the teams to push right at the top of the leaderboards come the end of this split. You've got 2R1C, some very, very familiar names on this lineup. You've got Ogjako, you've got Hyaka and Thorfinn. We've seen them previously in Pro League, and I always like the synergy that they have as a squad. Speaking of familiar names, no more familiar than the team that you see in front of you in the middle there. You aim, you've got Max Strafey, you've got Sanya and Artico. All of them have performed, all of them have put results, but can they find that chemistry, which is going to be a key theme going through this split as well. And then at the end, you've got Graceful. We saw him on the analyst desk at Champs, where he's back in the IGLC, and alongside him, he's got a LAN winner and an EMEA region split winner in Tyler. A lot of firepower, a lot to like on paper about this team, but again, synergy. Is it going to be there? Chemistry, is it going to be there? We're going to have to wait and see.
Well, from new contenders to new beginnings, some of the biggest personalities and best IGLs we've seen in EMEA taking on some new teams and taking on some new players. 07 featuring Nasky, Nags, and Amphi. An incredible team. Nasky with his IGL skills alongside 2 controller players, but will it work when they drop out of that drop 6? And then Element 6, K-Swinny. Can't wait to see what he can do again. I will always remember that Kraber clip, but I'm sure this team is going to display something a little bit different when it comes to compositions. And then the main man himself, the man who came so close to leading his team to a LAN victory. Vamokre are definitely going to be a team to watch out for, especially with Kings making the move to join the rest of the boys in Portugal.
Some teams with a few to prove, some teams with new beginnings, some teams with everything to prove. No days off. Our PSQ qualifier to get into Pro League. Takeo, one of the most impressive starts for an 18-year-old IGL from France. This team had only 5 scrims, and they ended up qualifying for Pro League after that. An incredible showcase of young talent. Can Sherbert and Plexus keep it up today? We'll find out. LVH, there's a man named Vifes there that we've seen on Alliance many a year until they made their ultimate changes to the roster that they have now. But when you combine that experience with Leifen and Jay Henzo, who have played so well, Leifen ascend on Element 6, they're still looking for glory, and can they do it again with that tenure on their roster? 40% worse, Mandy, Shiv FPS, Zerafer, these are all well-known faces in the ALGS community, but mostly from content lately over the last year. Can Shiv, Mandy, and Zerafer find their way together and prove it all, or will they actually be 40% worse, as their team name suggests? In fact, let's find out, because Shiv FPS, he's been doing a lot of streaming, a lot of qualifying for the Pro League, but I'm not sure he's been doing a lot of YouTube video intros lately. Let's check in with how year 4 is going to go in his eyes.
So my name is Shiv FPS. My teammates are Zerafer and Harry, as we call him. Okay, that was bad. That was bad. Can we? We're 100%. Yeah, true. We're 100% better. Okay. Name is 40% worse. Team name is okay. So I'm Shiv FPS. My teammates are Mandy and Zerafer, or Zeri as we call him, and our team name is 40% worse. So the goals of the team this year, our goal is to win everything and anything ALGS. We want to win all of our Pro League games, Pro League days. We want to qualify for regional finals, qualify for all the lands. We want to win everything and destroy all of our competition, everyone that stands in our way. So for our roster, we have Mandy as a dedicated IGL, going to be playing Horizon, obviously going to be queuing, ulting and nade stacking everyone. We have also Zeri, who's going to be our anchor, our catalyst player, who's going to be our support player. And then you have myself, obviously on the Bangalore, the Bangalorean, the Warlord, going to be taking space, angling enemies, and taking fights with the team together. And it's going to be a blast, okay? It's going to be crazy.
Shiv might be one of the only people, maybe I'll throw Hal in there as well, where it's just as interesting watching his actual player cam as it is watching his gameplay. What a joy, what a treat. Dan, you know, obviously high expectations. Not everyone who said they want to take first place is going to be able to do that, but a lot of confidence from a lot of the players we've been able to talk to today heading into the split.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone should be aiming for first place, and that's the whole reason why we've seen all these team changes. People want to catch up with the front pack, with the likes of Alliance, the likes of TSM, who have been dominating their region, and we'll have to see whether these changes are actually going to work out. I mean, early days, you're still going to have like chemistry issues, I would imagine, from the start, but maybe there'll be one team who really just blows up right at the start.
I can't wait to see it. Of course, this season is going to take place with 2 groups competing each day and alternating which groups compete. So for those who want a more in-depth look, let's zoom in on the participants in each group. Group A, here in EMEA, 2 rats, 1 controller, 40% worse, Shiv. Element 6, K-Swinny, 07. Nasky and Squad. This is definitely a group with a lot of veterans in them. Group B, coming up on your screen as well. They've got a lot of talent, as does all, and maybe the front runner in terms of EMEA Alliance. They will be taking their stage spot today. So we'll get to see this action between these two squads. And next week, kicking off their Pro League debut is Group C with the likes of Aurora. Cannot wait to see Hardeki with Fire Beaver's old squad come together. Phoenix Legacy, UAIM, Le Site de France, and of course, when you take a look at this collectively, it's going to be a star-studded event no matter which group is playing. Heading in, though, to today, Mark, Group A versus Group B. What's the overall thoughts here? What catches your eye?
I mean, we've touched on quite a lot of these teams, haven't we? We've really kind of gone into a little bit of depth on why you should be watching some of these lineups. New IGLs taking on a couple of controller players and seeing what they do, if they can find that synergy. But one team I just want to highlight, the full English. And yes, I am an Englishman who loves a full English. And I also love this roster because Bryn is back, everybody. This is something that's gone a little bit too under the radar for me. Noises is going to be IGL, and Dell is there, of course, who played alongside Naski for so long. But Bryn has been a player who, when he was competing, gave us some of the biggest highlight plays we have seen in the ALGS. One of the most talented individual players, and I cannot wait to see the full English going hard in this lobby.
Well, I want to say this is going to be an exciting day. Bryn also gets my vote of confidence as we were getting coffee in Birmingham at the championships, the exact same spot, the exact same time. And so I said, that man has some good taste. Hopefully it translates to Apex and his squad today. Fellas, a journey of 1,000 steps. It begins with the first one. So I cannot wait to hand it over to you two to kick us off and get us moving at the start of year 4.
Well, here we go then, everybody. It's what we've been waiting for, right? We've set everything up for you now. The table is set, and it's time to eat, Dan. We are moments away now from our first game of the EMEA region, from the ALGS getting back underway here in EMEA. And I got to say, mate, I've missed you. And the new season, new haircut. I kind of like it.
Yeah, I missed you too. Yeah, just trying to, keep up with likes of Yuki and Effect. Maybe they'll pick me up. Maybe I can be on Alliance because they've not made a team change. But of course, this is the map rotation. You guys know the drill. It's Storm Point, it's World's Edge. But we have some new changes to Storm Point from what we would have seen last time, Mark.
Yeah, we do. We have a lot of new POIs. We have some loot changes. We have some rotates that are going to be a lot different. And this map is going to play different, especially on some of those southern zones as well. And notably as well, it's the first week of Pro League, which means there's still some contests that haven't been sorted out. And we also are seeing the new legend come in to kind of affect some of those contests. Dan, it's going to be interesting to watch how Conduit has a little bit of influence on these lobbies.
Yeah, the contests that we could have today up towards wall between players and Vamo Career on Storm Point, and Coastal Camp down on the southern side between Cybercats and 40% Worse, and maybe one at Checkpoint between Stay Healthy and Mine. So those are the 3 POIs I'll be keeping an eye on right from the get-go out of the dropship. But you're completely right. When we're getting into Legend Select here, Mark, what are we going to see? Are we going to see people go for Conduit because they are going to have those early contests? We know that people want to have that initial fight be done as quick as possible, but Conduit, it extends those fights quite some time. So those teams who are on close POIs might be able to take advantage of it.
Yeah, Conduit has made the contests almost more difficult, right? Because you have that healing ability to get those shields back. It extends the fight for even longer. And when you think maybe you've got that gun, maybe you have a little bit of an advantage, maybe you open the bin first and find yourself getting punched off of it and the gun being stolen away. So Conduit certainly will have an influence. We'll have to see if there's teams playing Conduit, of course, who aren't contesting as well. Have seen that in scrims in EMEA. Seem to like the new legend and its ability to just give them a little bit of a fallback in some of those fights and allow you to overextend a little bit more than you would previously. But we're going to fly through Storm Point for a few moments here just to talk through some of those changes, the new POIs that we're going to be seeing. And there's one in front of you right now, right at the north side of Storm Point, Dan. It's Zoo Station, and Zoo Station has got one of the biggest balloons you'll ever see to get those rotates going.
And who better to drop Zoo Station than Full English, your favorite team of this group, as it was said. And it's making me very hungry, even just thinking about the Full English, has to be said. It's what, 10 a.m. here? I would quite like a proper fry-up here in America. But a lot of POIs that are going to be hotly contested for sure. As you mentioned, the northern side of Storm Point has always been the strongest places to drop, mainly just because of the height differences when teams start to rotate. If it does pull north, very difficult to move from the south. Horizon is going to be one of the key legends that we're going to see teams in their composition on this map just to try and regain some of that height difference here in any fight.
Well, there is Storm Point. You've seen it all, and now it's time to see a little bit of action. Welcome back to the ALGS, everybody. The new season is upon us. The dropship is live, and Storm Point in all of its beautiful pastel skyline is going to be where we start things off, Dan. Contests are going to be pretty hot at the start of this one. We'll have to see who comes out on top.
Yeah, Coastal Camp might be split. I wonder if Cybercats will drift off over towards Echo because they don't want to take a fight particularly early in this one. There are a few scraps and scrims, but I think that teams might just be able to split the difference. I'm going to be mainly looking at what's going to happen over towards Wall and also Checkpoint as the two biggest POIs. As you can see, it looks like 40% worse have Coastal Camp to themselves. Cybercats have left them, so no contest happening on the southern side of the map.
Interested to see if they happen elsewhere, though. We'll keep an eye, on the top right-hand side of your screen. But we're getting some information. This is a little bit of a false start. We're going to get back into this lobby as soon as we can. But the great thing is, Dan, we're not going to struggle for things to talk about because we have this new season. And I am going to move the conversation away from where I want it to go, which is talking about your hair, because it is delicious and beautiful, and I'm jealous of it, towards Apex Legends. Because I think there's a lot of changes that have been made that we kind of touched upon this idea of a great reset in Apex Legends, right? And I think we've had a few years go by now, and teams have pretty much tried everything that they could have to catch the biggest names in the world, and we keep using Alliance and TSM as those relative teams for EMEA and North America. This happens a lot in esports, right, where everyone's kind of like, we feel like we've hit our ceiling, we've done everything that we can, it's time for something fresh. And when you go through that kind of difficult off season, if you're one of those players who's trying to find a new team, find a way to find some synergy with someone else, it leaves questions, right? Because even though scrims have gone down, you still have those contests, you still have teams trying to find out the rotates, and the lobby becomes almost a little bit circumstantial, right? Because you have contests, that means teams fall out early, you have new rotates open up, and I think this first week of Pro League is going to be a really good indication of what we can expect to see in the coming weeks as well, with maybe some of the contests starting to get settled a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I love scrims, and I love how seriously everyone takes scrims. I say everyone with an asterisk because there are a few people who maybe don't take them as seriously, but you can never replicate pure tournament style of play, right? There is no risks in scrims, really. You might get yelled at by someone else who's in the game, but there is nothing you are going to lose. You're not going to not gain any points. You're not going to lose any prize money. Once you get into Pro League, suddenly everything is actually at risk, and some of these plays you might have made during scrims aren't really going to be good plays to make because you're going to be a little bit more scared. So there is going to be a lot of circumstantial things, as you said, we may have seen during scrims that might change, and we will learn here in match week 1. And I think you're completely right about team changes as well. Everyone trying to catch up. Apex is a game purely based off chemistry at times. How well do you play together? How well do you move together? Are you going to support your team? Is the IGL clicking with the two players that he's trying to command? A lot of that you don't want to throw away too quickly, so teams will do what they can to try and keep up, but then finally now teams have realized, okay, we are not matching the pace of some of the biggest teams. Let's make some changes. But now we're going to see teams have to start all over again, right? So we might see these early match weeks where teams will struggle, but they will start to learn, they will start to gel, and then they'll start to progress as a unit.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the season comes along. And we kind of mentioned the new legend we're going to be seeing, of course, for the first time in the ALGS. And that is going to be Conduit and what she brings to the table. We mentioned how Conduit is almost a necessity on contest, Dan. And tell us a little bit about why.
Conduit, just the ability to be able to shield your teammates is going to be massive for some of these early fights. And also, if you're losing those fights, of course, she's a support legend, so it means you can get away, and anyone in your team can get away and recraft those banners. So you'll see a lot of teams taking those fights, and if they go down 2 players, the third will usually just try and run away as quickly as possible, rather than try and stay around, try and get a knock themselves or anything like that. She is an incredible legend for a fighting team, and not just in early fights, can really help out in those late game fights. Great at spacing some teams with her ultimate too. So I think that she is going to be seen a lot here in Pro League.
Yeah, I think it's interesting as well. You mentioned, you know, we talk about the contests, but Conduit obviously has some value elsewhere, especially in those end games. We see, you know, players who are using Conduit, getting that ultimate down and really causing a real sort of floor is lava situation in final circles where they're just constantly ticking away and slowing damage. So if you can save and hold on to that ultimate of the energy barricade, then you can really cause a ruckus and divide zones in half, and firing it through a few cat walls or over the top of it can certainly cause some problems as well. So Conduit, we expect expected to see it a little bit more heavily in EMEA, I would say, in comparison to North America, but certainly something we keep our eyes on that contest. Elsewhere, we do have some potential changes as well, and I think we talk about changes, Dan, but one thing that certainly is going to be consistent, I would say, on Stormpoint is the use of Bangalore. If you can get her into your composition right, we know that the smokes and the digi threat are still so strong. If you're sieging a building or if you're trying to hold off on a push, and the digi threat, it's not in the craft, I believe, right now, so it's going to be a necessity and at a premium if you can pick one of those up for fights.
Yeah, I think Bangalore and Horizon is going to be our two biggest Legends selections that we see throughout today, but Bangalore for a reason. I mean, it's great that we've got Shiv in the lobby, because Shiv, one of the few players who pioneered Bangalore and stuck with her during the dark times when she wasn't meta, but now the smoke's so important for those rotations, and even the Rolling Thunder can be very crucial in some of those, not just endgame fights, but sometimes just to try and keep a team away from you, allow you to flee, or just to push them back away from a location, get them off of high ground. So many uses for Bangalore, whether it be aggressive or defensive. She's just a great all-round character to be using.
Certainly is a mainstay, and speaking of mainstays, we saw kind of the rise of Catalyst towards the end of last season, and no surprise to see she's still going to be a legend that you're going to be picking, falling into that controller legend and going to be able to hit those beacons. And that's one thing that maybe you're going to be able to have to give up if you are playing Conduit on those contests, that ability to hit a beacon and find out where that Zoe is going. There are some little changes that of course were made, as you can see on your screen as well. Only 2 Qs going to be available now instead of the 3, which makes it a little bit more of a thought process as to where you want to put those down, what side of a building you want to try and protect and slow down, and also you can't yeet them quite as far as well. 50% reduction on the range, because I'm not gonna lie, you could really do some damage from distance with those.
Yeah, she was almost as threatening as Fuse at times, with her ability just to toss them out and really grief people who are hiding behind any sort of little object that they could have found. But now with the 50% reduction, you don't really have that same range, but she is still very important, and mainly it's for the Dark Veil. It's to be able to not just cover off sight lines and be able to make rotations, but also just kind of manipulate that final circle in any way you want to. Whether you want to push a team, whether you want to avoid a team, even if you just want to annoy a team, it's so difficult with vision when you're trying to walk through that wall back and forth if it is not your Dark Veil. So Catalyst is going to be very important as well, and I'm sure we'll still see plenty of her.
Well, here we go then. No false start this time. The ALGS is back, everybody. Game 1, you can see it. The players are already falling out of the dropship. And one thing that we did, interestingly, you noted down, it seems like no contest between 40% worse down on that south side. So it seems like a little bit of a split has gone down. And again, a little bit of a change to the lobby, right? We've seen teams contesting, and all of a sudden we're into ALGS, we're into the big games, and everyone gets a little bit more scared than they were previously. So you can see 40% worse on your screen right now. They are comfortable with their POI.
Yeah, I think Cybercats realized they were being a bit greedy, trying to spread themselves between Echo and Coastal, and maybe just recognizing also that 40% worse, a very good fighting team. I remember seeing Shiv's team take a lot of early scraps in previous ALGS seasons, so quite right to avoid them off the drop. But suddenly my eye line goes elsewhere. What's going to happen at Checkpoint? What's going to happen at Wall? Because there are contests happening, and here it is at Wall. It's VQ versus Red Dragon.
Yeah, Red Dragon going in, VQ going to be already with Kings down, so it doesn't look like maybe there is actually going to be a trade going down. So this contest, which has been going on in scrims for weeks and weeks and weeks, well, it's not finishing here in the Pro League as well. Kashira gets a little bit of damage, but do they have the man advantage? You would imagine so, from the fact that they're both quite happy to double push this door down. It seems like they do have an advantage, and sends 4 seconds till that Q's back on Conduit as well to get those shields back.
I was about to say, here it is. There's and it almost saves, but not quite quick enough. And now suddenly it's going to be advantage to RD. They have a 2 versus 1, and they should be able to finish it up. Or can they? As Kashira bites back.
Kashira trying to escape, trying to use those knockdown shields, but he's not going to be able to do it. And one team to watch who has made those big changes over the offseason, we thought might be a contender, won't get to play too much Apex Legends in game number 1. It's going to be Red Dragon who come out on top, and VQ, they're going to have to just take a little nap here and think about map number 2.
Yeah, that's a shame for Vamos Kuder, who will go down, but this is Checkpoint, and these are the 2 teams, Stay Healthy in mind, who have been able to split Checkpoint quite well, and now this is going to be an elongated early fight. So this is going to be good news for the likes of Outplayed and No Days Off, who are dropping nearby, and they're going to be able to hear all this commotion going down for quite a while, by the way. So that will either A, allow them to third party if they fancy it, or they can make a more comfortable rotation around Checkpoint and avoid those teams who would usually be rotating with them.
Well, at the moment, it looks like both teams have decided to, well, stay healthy. That's all I'm going to say on that one. They decide to split the loot pool and decide to move on to their rotations. And speaking of which, Dan, we do have a little bit of an indication of where the zone is going to be going. It's probably pretty south, and Barometer is looking like a pretty good bet for some of these teams at the moment, as we're already seeing teams start to stack up. As on the south side, we can also see one team who's stacking up on loot, and that's going to be 40% worse.
Yeah, Barometer is going to be the place to be, and those teams who did have access to the ring console were already moving nice and early. Quite important that Redragon won that fight as well on wall, because they now have a ring console they can just have a little look at, say, all right, well, we know we've got to move quite some way, but at least we've won this fight. We know that all the northern teams are going to be moving fast, so I would imagine Redragon will be one of the last teams to rotate in, and they'll just focus on making sure they loot up accordingly. As for Shiv and the rest of 40% worse, they'll be making their way to Barometer now. Quite an easy rotation from Coastal Camp, and they will have that indication of what's going to be going down. They had a survey beacon, but unfortunately no chance to use it for them. So no ring console, but I think they were able to see where everyone was going.
Interesting to see that Mandy had every single thing decked out in purple on that scout as well, so every attachment you could possibly wish for. But Zerafa is probably thinking, hey, can we switch one of those purple attachments for a purple shield? That would be quite nice. Elsewhere, you can see they've got the long distance weapons to do a little bit of poke damage and get Zeri at least up to a blue pretty quickly. But this is a great spot to play if the zone pulls to this side of Barometer. We do see it pull to the other side, the more western side, sometimes as well. The height is obviously, I would say, the most comfortable position to play, but as we almost always know, Dan, sometimes playing the ultimate height can cause some problems if it does pull away and then you have to jump down and move down to that lower ground.
And that's where legend composition can really come into it in those final circles. What utility do you have to help those scenarios? As you can see, all of like the ultimates and smokes and dark veils going down for teams to start making their move, and we're already seeing lots of Horizon, lots of Bangalore, even quite a bit of Watson, it would seem. We saw that in APAC as well last night, Watson featuring heavily. A great legend to still use and also have that ability to hit those ring consoles as well. I guess this gives us a good chance to talk about the weapon meta and what's happened in the most recent changes as well, Mark. We are going to see a lot of 30-30 still, arguably the most powerful ranged weapon that we have in the game at the moment, aside from the Kraber, and is going to be a staple. And then for short range, we're going to see a lot of Volt. Now, R99 still very strong, but was nerfed ever so slightly. That means without a clip, it is now kind of rivaled by the Volt. So I think we'll start to see a lot more SMG variety and not just R99s on our screen.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. And obviously the car going to be a good pickup as well for those ultra close range battles without high rate of fire. But there is a little bit more parity with the SMGs than just the dominance of the R99. But you're still quite right. If you've got a purple or gold mag on an R9, you're probably going to pick it over anything else just for that rate of fire and ability to just shred through some people. But good rotate here coming in from Team Cold. And this is the team where you looked at it on paper on the off-season, Dan, and there's not many holes you could pick in it. You've got champions from LAN, you've got EMEA champions, and you've got one of the IGLs, the most established and veteran IGLs in all of the EMEA region as well, who is pretty damn good on the analyst desk as well in Graceful. And you hope that they can get out to a good start, because I think there's one of those teams, if they can get out to a good start, that the only thing that can really stop them is maybe a little bit of self-doubt and confidence.
An impressive rotation from them as well, moving from command center, getting all the way to Barometer and finding a hot spot, as it were, but potentially a fight that could be happening over here. Two teams certainly posturing up against one another, and you can see Wifes is just having a little bit of a look alongside the rest of the squad at the moment. But both teams will be more than happy to reside in these buildings for now, but they will know that eventually they are going to have to move once this circle comes in.
It's a little bit of poking, a little bit of prod. Both teams should be safe inside of this building, but one team will have to leave, and you imagine both teams will have to leave at some point. But look at this angle. Unfortunately, it's not going to be an angle which is good enough. It looks like an invisible wall is causing some problems. Hanzo's getting creative, but the game is slowing him down.
Yeah, slowing him down a lot, but trying to get in. And oh my god, there's just so many Watson fences everywhere. But now they burst out, and it's like a surprise attack, and it will have to be a retreat, but the retreat is not quick enough.
VH lose one. Hanzo has gone down, and he was the player who was trying to make that initial play, and now No Days Off have the numbers advantage. Can they take the last two players down without finding anyone else to come in and third party this? It looks like this is a pretty isolated fight at the moment. It looks like LVH have decided, hey, well, let's just try and get out of here and try and reposition for now. But No Days Off want to try and chase him down, want to try and pick up these KP, but aren't going to be able to do so comfortably at the moment.
Yeah, there's a couple of teams nearby that can probably hear this going down, Aftermath and Outplayed, but they're in positions that are arguably better than this one, so there's no reason for them to move in. So as you say, still a pretty isolated fight. Now, I wouldn't say they're out of this just yet, by the way, because they have the ability to get Hanzo back. Now, this should encourage the other team to essentially make a push here, because you've got to try and finish these two off, but this is great damage just to keep them back as this respawn beacon comes down.
Give me Mortal Kombat vibes. Hanzo, every time I hear that name, I just think of Scorpion. We'll have to see if he's going to be able to bring the fire as he gets back into the lobby right now. But you're right, the mobile respawn is going to be in the backpack, which means they can get him back in. And now the push is coming in that they see that opportunity as the 2v3 might become a 3v3 if Hanzo can get back inside of this building. And just a reminder as well, dropping out the dropship now, you're going to have that armor that you had previously. You're also going to have the weapons, not the attachments, but you can fight now. It's not like you're that sitting duck.
Yeah, a big change compared to when we last saw ALGS and back at the championship. So it meant that they could get back up to full strength here, LVH, and they didn't take the fight. We saw that there was the potential for no days off to say, all right, well, let's try and push the two. But as soon as that respawn has come through, you know then there is a player who's coming back with weapons to actually deal some damage. So great for the respawn beacon to be available for LVH. They had that mobile resi, and they were easily able to get that banner. So now they can just restart their game. So still 18 squads.
There's full English moving in as well. You can see Alliance on the horizon as well, just to the north of them, as all of these buildings start to be taken inside of Cenote. But one thing that might stop people is a Kraber. Line it up, buddy. Pull that trigger. Let's see some skulls being splattered.
Just scouting things out at the moment. 11 bullets, plenty to work with. And they're more than happy in this position, I will say. So the circle, even though it is still looking like it's going to head further towards Barometer, there is a chance it could pull a little bit southwest and actually would end up really well for the teams like Aftermath, who have already positioned themselves all the way in that southwest corner. But most teams still banking on Barometer being where we're going to be positioning ourselves.
18 squads alive. It is always fascinating to me, Dan, for everyone at home to watch scrims for months. And there'll be 7 teams alive as Zone 3 starts to close, to going into the ALGS, and all of a sudden everyone's like, right, okay, let's play some real way picks. 18 squads alive, just the 2. We saw the 1 lost on contest and 1, of course, lost on rotate, but everybody else is set up, Dan. Everybody in Barometer. And I think the fact that we have a zone with a good POI with so many playable areas is allowing this in our game number 1. Everyone can find a rotation. Everybody can find their way in towards an end game. And I think it's going to set us up for one of those crazy Zone 4s where the zone pull might surprise a few people, but we're going to see teams forced to be funneled and fight.
You can see RD were the last team to move from the north as we expected from Wall, but there is still a team from the kind of eastern side. Stay Healthy are going to be moving in with the circle. They're the only squad who are outside of this circle at the moment, and we had a brief overlook of just how congested some of the areas in Barometer are, but it's not all going to be in central Barometer. There's a lot of teams that are spread out. They've taken buildings, the only buildings that were available to them when they made their rotation. But this next circle is going to be a big one for those who don't have that information to give them an idea of where it's going to be pulling.
And the only thing that saved the player in that broken building was the fact that the Kraber bullets are a little bit heavy. Even though the gun is very, very strong, you've got to make sure that you account for that bullet drop-off if you want to hit the headshot. 140, though, is certainly going to help in leveling up that Evo shield here for Jukes. You can see he's only 37 damage off, and I'm going to be honest with you, he doesn't need the Kraber for that. He just needs to pull the Volt out if he needs to and just spray and get a little bit of chip damage to make sure that he's feeling healthy. Here comes the rotate, though, from the team that we saw win the contest right at the start of this game, but can they find someone to play?
Yeah, the evac towers are dropping, but Redragon, unfortunately, not able to really get anywhere with them. They're just trying to make sure they group together at this point, but it's going to be an interesting rotation for a lot of squads, that's for sure. But at the moment, everyone's going to be starting to head back towards this southwest area. So the circle has pulled slightly away from Barometer to the west. So those teams who are on the southeast side are going to have to move. The likes of 2 Rats, 1 Controller, 40% worse. They're in the danger zones for me because they're going to have to push through all these teams that are in the center side of Barometer, and they're going to be able to hold the height over them.
Yeah, it's a pretty rough zone pull for those teams. Like you mentioned, they're all going to have to leave Barometer, and it looks like we might be finishing down in the open. No buildings inside of the zone. Maybe Aftermath might have like a little skinny corner to play in, potentially, but you would imagine the bridge is going to become a pretty primary position, but difficult to hold down unless you have a Watson or a Catalyst, something that can cause problems. And August and Hungry, they've realized that maybe their position isn't great. They need to start fighting. They need to clear the way and pick up some KP.
Yeah, ALGS and Hungary have a slightly more comfortable rotation just because they're the only team here on this southern side, but look at the damage that's being emitted by the teams that are above them. I said it was comfortable. Take it back. It's not comfortable at all, as now they're down to just 2.
Yeah, we see teams starting to fall as well. I mentioned Element 6 have fallen. Not a great first game for them. ALGS and Hungary down to 2 as well. And this is what I meant. This zone close from 3 to 4 is going to force so many teams, especially with that zone pool, to have to make decisions on how they want to try and approach it. You can see at the moment that, 40% words, they're trying to pick up a few things. They're trying to pick up a few extra banners and maybe a few meds to help them through that, but it's going to be a tough move for them.
Yeah, excuse me, that was 40% worse on our screen who were having a little bit of a struggle. ALGS and Hungary are fine as a 3 on the southern side. It was all these teams on the southeast that are trying to make their move and trying to survive, and it's also happening on the northern side as well. Teams being held out, teams being griefed, and this is the damage that can happen if you are the late arrivals. The ring just tickles you as you're trying to run through, but then also all the damage coming out from the teams that are able to watch as RD try and survive as they might.
Stay healthy, eliminated in the meantime. But I mean, RD, this is the team, like I mentioned, that won the contest. They then used that evac to wrap all the way back to the north, and now they're finding themselves back in the fight with Alliance, who are holding them out the first time, and it looks like Alliance should be able to clean up these pieces. KP for them, it's going to be Redragon who are eliminated, as Alliance now have a long way to go on the quick side of zone to fight their way in.
Cybercats also go down to R1C. Looks like they should be okay, but they're being... Oh yeah, they won the fight, so that's good. Cybercats eliminated. 2R1C are the ones who took them down. They now own this side of Barometer, but there are a few teams around them as well. You mentioned Alliance. They're going to have a tough rotation. If they go over that bridge, they're going to have a team to their east and to their west, so maybe an evac tower could be their best chance of surviving, but at the same time, that's also very risky, as the circle, again, is going to be moving west here.
I mean, we've gone from 18, 17 squads down to 13 already, and the rest of the teams who are in Barometer, we're going to lose at least 3 or 4 more, you would imagine. Down on the southern side of the zone, you can see ALGS and Hungary have somehow made their way through, as they're trying to now push this fight. If they can win this fight, then they might be in a position to take away one of the god spots, but there is one player going down. Unlucky flies in extremely aggressively there, Dan, and might have just given away that first knock a bit too easily.
Yeah, Aftermath trying to do what they can to respond in this fight. It's a 1 versus 1 now, potentially, and it is going to be Aftermath who come out on top. And unfortunately for ALGS and Hungary, not able to really get going in that fight. Can Aftermath stabilize, though? LVH are kind of griefing them from a distance, trying to get the finishes on these knocks, but at least Flash is going to be healthy and well, and they should be able to get back up to a full 3 here before round 4 closes.
Yeah, it's such a smart decision as well, just to use that ult excel, just to give teammates an opportunity to get a little bit of shield back, as they're going to be forced out from behind this rock. It means they can pop the meds so they don't die to the zone, but also move with a little bit extra HP, so they do get one player back in, even with the rest of the teams who are fighting all the way from Cenote, trying to damage them, trying to chip away at those shields. But 07, who were in Barometer, they've taken that bridge position I was mentioning.
And now this is where all the commotion is going to be happening on this northeast side and just east side in general. Everyone moving for Barometer. Cold eliminated. They're getting, unfortunately, griefed as well. Our 2R1C, 44% worse, also go down. But 07 are holding a good spot here, but they might be joined very shortly.
Here comes the push then. They're trying to hold it down. You saw a couple more teams being eliminated in the meantime. Full English, 2 rounds, 1 controller. They have gone as well. Naski is down, but there's Amphi to close things out. Mine, though, are going to be taken down. 07 will be eliminated as the nades do come in, and it's Alliance, the last of the party, but the ones who are going to be celebrating the most. They can take control of the northern side of the zone.
Oh, but that was perfect for Alliance. As they crossed the bridge, they saw all the pushes happening. They saw where their opening was, and they had to jump on that fight quick enough. And thankfully, there was enough damage done to 07 that it made it easy for Alliance just to swoop in on the end. So now, suddenly, we're down to just 6 squads just like that. Alliance, Infinite, Outplayed, Aftermath, LVH, and No Days Off. Remember, LVH and No Days Off were fighting on that western side right at the start of this game. They've been able to slowly creep down further and further on the southwest to get into arguably some of the best positions. LVH are the only team in circle right now.
However, you can be in circle, but Effect has got a wingman, and we know that gun from the package is a problem for anyone who tries to get in the way of it, and that's what happens. Effect goes in and just mows down the majority of the shields. There's the cleanup crew coming in for Alliance. 8 seconds till the zone starts to move, though. Alliance are going to have to keep moving here. That fight is not going to be the end of it for them.
Yeah, Outplayed are starting to join this fight. Aftermath also taking a look at it. Alliance just need to stay healthy, get those shield swaps. They finally take down Infinite, and I don't think Outplayed closed that gap quick enough to be able to push this fight. So Alliance will get a second to reset. Even with the barrages happening around them, they should be able to survive. But now, with 40 seconds until round 5 closes, they have to move westward, but they are getting griefed by all sorts of grenades.
Oh my goodness, they are getting absolutely decimated by grenades, as frags, as thermites, and that will be the end of them. Alliance will fall, but from the very northern side of Storm Point here, I think getting into that position, taking away a top 5 with those amount of KP, they're going to be pretty happy. Here are your teams remaining, though, down on the right-hand side of your screen, and it's LVH. We saw Alliance go down, but the Alliance man himself, Vibes, he's back, and he's still in God spot with LVH.
Yeah, Aftermath and Outplayed are going to be fighting. No Days Off and LVH going to be fighting on the other side, so big fights going down, and maybe we'll end up with a full 3v3 here, depending on how this happens. But it looks like teams just trying to avoid the commotion right now, because it's very dangerous to take a fight at this point in the game, especially if you're in open area, and there is quite a lot of open area. But look at everyone's managed to find a little nook and cranny to hide behind at the moment.
Yeah, this is an interesting final circle, isn't it? 50 seconds left until the zone starts to close. You're starting to look across what teams have ultimates available, what teams are going to have the wall available, and I love this play call coming in from LVH. They want to clear this side of zone. They got some initial damage, but initial damage doesn't matter when you get shredded down. You get absolutely put on your back. And now LVH, having made that initial call and made that initial play, are relying on Lifing to move in and clean up the damage, and he's not going to be able to do so. LVH, it was a smart play, it was a good play, but the counter play was even better, as now we see the final teams move in.
Yeah, Outplayed and Aftermath are now going to be fighting each other as well, so this is going to be a straight 3v3 on the southern side, which will allow No Days Off to reset, but already one has fallen. Shex has gone down. Jack's trying to stay alive and also has a lot of help on the Bangalore here as well. Great damage from the Vault, and now we have 2 squads, but No Days Off, now they move in.
It's a 2v2. They didn't manage to get that res in time. The Kraber might be the difference maker, but not going to connect with the first shot. Can't get the finish either. There was an opportunity, but it was not taken. And now you have to feel this is going to be the end of the game. It's ANC Outplayed, who are your first champion here on Storm Point.
A great effort from No Days Off. As you mentioned, they were only a 2. Unfortunately, that third properly went down and out. But I love the time that they pushed. They tried to take advantage of what they had heard. They didn't really get a full reset, but Outplayed, doing so well to make sure that they maneuvered their way on that southern side to stay alive and then take the fights when they needed to.
You just thought there was the opportunity there. Weren't able to get the res immediately. The team pushes across, and it's a 2v2 scenario, but just couldn't maybe get enough of a reset with their shields, realizing that that was their opportunity to win the game, so they just had to go and try and capitalize on that damage. And unfortunately, the shield differential just allowed them to get in a position to clean up that 2v2. One Kraber bullet could have changed it, though, Dan. We know that. One bullet there gets hit, and we have a different champion. But, I mean, what a first game. Great to see 18 teams alive. I think it was on Zone 3, if I'm not mistaken. So, EMEA showing that scrims mean nothing, as we all know. And when we get to the Pro League is when the real action starts.
Yeah, No Days Off performing well from qualifiers into Pro League as well. Still showing that they are a very high kill style team, and they've been able to find a lot of victories in their fights. And remember, they were fighting so early as well on that western side versus LVH, and I was worried that we might see those 2 teams dip out early, but the circle started to pull towards them, and they were able to kind of reap the rewards because of that, as all those teams who had committed to Barometer had to move at exactly the same time, and it was just a death pit over towards Barometer when that happened.
It certainly was indeed. Infinite, by the way, shout out to you guys. I mean, 10 kills for them alongside some placement points gives them 13 points overall. Full English in 9th position there, just a couple of placement points for them. But as we move over to page 2, we'll see a couple of teams who did struggle, and the one team that is going to be notable is Vamo Carrere. Right at the bottom there, lost that contest over at the wall. E6 surprisingly going out early as well, but as we see, whenever they go down, they still have some KP alongside it. And you can see also Cold, who were in a pretty good position to start off with. Unfortunately, that pull from Barometer all the way over to the west side kind of hurt them a little bit more than most.
And we saw 2 very different styles of play from a lot of teams. I mean, we've always kind of spoke about who's a zone team, who's an edge team, what's better in the current meta. Is it better to play edge? There was times where Alliance really benefited from playing edge, where they were able to move in and pick up the pieces. But then eventually it was a team who had really played zone from the very get-go, who were able to kind of hold on to a lot of the area that was created by that circle. But plenty of action happening towards the late game there. We went down from like 15 squads to 6 in the matter of minutes at one point. But that's an amazing way to start off ALGS Year 4 with EMEA here.
ANC outplayed, obviously taking home that first win. LVH, there's a couple of plays that they made towards the end where you're just kind of like, I like this play, but the execution was lacking, right? That one team fight, they recognize if they win that team fight, they probably win the game. They got some initial damage done, but then they had to push the Watson team. And we always talk about compositions, why you play certain legends. With that gen down, it just elongated that fight. The shields just kept regenerating a little bit, and they weren't able to get the finishes on that initial damage that did come in. So that was kind of the game-defining fight, I would say, that lost LVH the game and gave ANC Outplayed the opportunity to win it with the time that it took to finish that fight. And I think ANC Outplayed, you're looking at them down and you're thinking, maybe not talked about enough by us. We talked about so many teams, but one team we didn't talk about is the team who win our first game here.
Yeah, and dropping over towards Downed Beast, so they were on that western side already, but they still had to move, and they ended up on the southern side. So they were able to move quickly, position themselves accordingly, and then reap those rewards as well when the circle did start to pull towards them. But it also shows how important it is to keep a full 3 up. I know that sounds silly, and I know how difficult it is, but knockdown shields are going to be important. Make sure you've got some way of protecting you so that you can get picked up, because if you get finished that late on, you're not going to be able to get back into the game. Well, unlikely anyway, even with a mobile resi. So that was unfortunate for LVH, but we have to tip our hats if we had them to Outplayed.
Well, that is game 1 done and dusted. It's time for us to go to a quick break, but don't go anywhere, everyone. The ALGS will continue here in EMEA. Game 2, just around the corner.
Welcome back to the ALGS Year 4 Split 1. We are back with Game 2. Rain Day and Gaskin on the mic representing the start of EMEA. And Dan, what a finish. We saw ANC Outplayed, a team, quite rightly, we have not spoken about enough, take the win in game number 1.
Well, that's one way to start getting talked about, right? Is to start winning games and put your name on that map. And now we're going to be keeping an eye on Outplayed and how they move and how they rotate and whether they can make this a pattern or whether it was just a one-off going into map number 2. Remember, they drop over towards Downed Beast, so that kind of southwest circle did help them out. But the same could be said for LVH, who drop at Cenote Cave. They weren't able to capitalize, but they were griefed quite early on. But still, both teams able to pick up good points from circles pulling their way.
And just to mention, Andy Jack, Shex, Willem, they've been together, the Italian trio, since 2022. And Andy Jackson Shex since 2021. These players actually are, we talked about Alliance being a long tenured roster, one of the longer tenured rosters in EMEA that have stuck together. So that bodes well for them continuing off as we take a look at the teams coming in ready to drop off. But Dan, I mean, that's got to mean something in the chaos of starting off a league. It's always good to have longtime teammates that can support you in those final zones.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you almost have a head start against a lot of these teams who have made even more changes because you're going to have that chemistry. You're going to have that knowledge of playing in certain scenarios, playing in certain circles. But my question would be, if you've not made those changes and it wasn't working in previous years, why is it suddenly going to start working now? Or maybe Outplayed are finally clicking to the point where they say, okay, well, we know what we've been doing wrong previously, and we think that it will be worth it as we head into year 4 and as we head out of the dropship here for match number 2.
It's Storm Point. World's Edge comes in the second half of our games today in EMEA, but we go to where the storm is heaviest, right into the eye, as we kick off with, yes, another contest. Dan, you had mentioned this is a big part of a few of the starts of this season, teams fighting for space. Back to Vamos Correr, looking to get that contest going their way this time around.
Yeah, last time they were about a millisecond away from the Conduit Q being able to help them in that fight. We'll have to see whether they'll be able to get a better fight this time, but it looks like maybe RD are saying, oh, yep, we've lost one. We're getting out of here. They can craft the banner because they have the support legend to be able to do so. And Vamos Correr were able to get the better of them this time, and they will assert a little bit more dominance.
Big start for Vamos Correr because it could have gone very, very poorly. 2 games in a row, you're sitting out for 30 minutes. That is one of those difficult mental battles. Plus, you don't want to fight the personnel battle of looking to get your team together off of scrims into the real ALGS environment. It's 1-1 for these two teams. So Red Dragon now going to go back to the drawing board and see if they can take the edge before heading to World's Edge. As we transition over another fight between No Days Off. And look at this, Vamos Correr possibly getting involved. No, they're really not. This is actually, I think,
this is Mind and No Days Off. Yeah.
A mistake. Yeah, this is, we're just getting those graphics set up for you guys. But No Days Off specifically, second place in that match we just saw, Dan, really impressed me so far.
Yeah, being able to quickly move in those early games to get into that western position, but now are they going to be able to move quick enough fighting Mind here at North Pad? That means Mind left checkpoint and instead moved over to North Pad, so that's an interesting decision. You already had a contest happening. Well, it's worked out for them as Mind will wipe out No Days Off. So No Days Off, after an amazing match number 1, the new team who qualified into Pro League, suddenly they then get griefed at North Pad, and Mind have said, you know what, we're not going to give you any easy games, we're not going to give you any easy looting paths. Instead, we'll take the fight to you.
Wonderful stuff. No Days Off again. Just mentioning that 18-year-old prowess. Played the Watson, switched, I believe, to Catalyst earlier on, so we'll see how that goes. Infinite, another team, 13 total points. I think they placed around 8th, but with 10 kills. That's why they're sitting at about 4th place overall in the lobby. Kizarone, Aimbot, obviously members of our EMEA Pro League for a while, but showing up really nicely in game 1. And sometimes just getting those kills early on, that's a big confidence booster for teams heading into the next portion of these matches. Sometimes the tactics will come. Sometimes you have to feel out how this lobby is going to move, especially with rotations and how people are playing in zones. You mentioned playing a little safer, rotating early, but if you get kills early on, that at least gives you some confidence going into most engagements that you take.
Now, I'm interested to see where Cold move here because they were one of the teams who had Ring Console available to them at their drop, as well did Full English, and actually they're both landing in the same spot, so both teams with a very similar idea after seeing where this circle is going to be going, and they want to be holding this northern side over towards checkpoint, but it looks like there's going to be plenty of teams here to try and just inflict some damage as they dropped. Full English and Cold taking the fight, but also 2R1C in the vicinity too.
No extended mag on the triple take, but one of my favorite weapons this season by far. So effective in that mid to close range, as well as being able to pepper from long range. We'll see if that continues to push. Seems like they wanted none of that. Catalyst securing the backside of a door as they look for another engagement. You see noises though, and Squad continuing their best to try to push forward and create it, but Cole just going to sit in, pop an ultimate accelerant, make sure that Catalyst wall is ready to go with JMW, Graceful, and Tyler FPS. Graceful, we've seen him be so successful in this Pro League and on broadcast with us as well, Dan. He's a multi-talented threat. He's looking to get a few kills though. His eyes are focused on this one.
Yeah, whilst we were able to spend more time with him, though, one thing he made very clear, he wants to play, he wants to compete. He's not ready to retire and join us on the desk just yet, and we'll have to see whether he can make his way to LAN once again. It all starts here in the early days here of Pro League. You have to find consistency, you have to be gelling as a squad, as there's a lot of commotion going down underneath Checkpoint, actually, and it looks like Stay Healthy will be taking this fight, and they are staying healthy. They're a player up right now.
Nice shots from the Volt. Though pushing it as well over the knockdown shield. Can't quite finish it off. The R301 will do it. And that's another 3 kills. Mind going down after that early engagement with no days off. They've been forced into the rotation, and Stay Healthy have stayed just that. But they're not alone. Infinite coming around the corner as well. Will they be a part of this? Will Cole be able to come down from the top? We would expect JMW to maybe have that Catalyst wall close. Tyler FPS does have that Bangalore ultimate. But again, no one finding the exact moment to push. You might give up a little bit more than you get in this regard. So staying patient and keeping height.
And it looks like the circle is going to be kind of heading the northwestern side of the middle of the map, if that makes any sense to you. A lot of checkpoint goers in the moment, and a lot of teams going to be moving there nice and early, as again, SH are going to be having a look over towards another team, and it's going to be plenty of teams just trying to escape the fire that's happening from the high ground. This is what happens on Storm Point when you get a circle that pulls north. If you are one of those southern teams, you have to fight your way uphill, and it can often be so detrimental if you take the fight too early, because then other teams get involved and you're just left with very little to be able to do. Instead, sometimes you want to try and go unnoticed. You want to try and creep through to find a position and then utilize the legend abilities that are available for you. If you've got that horizon, sure, that's great. Then that can help you push a team as on high ground.
One of the reasons, even in terms of adjusting areas in Storm Point, the developers mentioned making things have a little bit more parity from going high to low or low to high, attempting to do that with lightning rod changes. Right now, though, that's a bit too wide of a thought process. We need to focus right in on Fricks and that R99. People said it was still meta. Well, at least enough for Fricks to get the job done with an L-Star as well. Bullets going into the bodies of his enemies. It seems like that has stayed consistent for Fricks and ExoClan. Young Hong Kong and Bavis, they find a couple of kills and reset with a Phoenix kit.
Yeah, 40% worse, losing 2, and the final player, which I think is Shiv, is going to be retreating just to try and stay alive and maybe rat out for some placement. Now, circle information will be given to everyone who even didn't get ring console, and those teams who are on the southern side are going to get the unfortunate news that they are going to have to head north, maybe cut through Tito Station and end up over towards Checkpoint. So we've lost 2 squads early on, but also a few players have dropped here or there from other teams. We've got a couple who aren't quite a full healthy 3.
Starting off in any type of split, they're always going to have a little bit of hesitancy. We haven't seen that in Game 2. Game 1 certainly played to our expectations, a little bit slower, 19 squads alive for quite a bit of time. We've already lost a couple here, and it seems like people have been very willing to go to the engagements. I think, Dan, that's also a part of the circle, as we had mentioned, pulling north. A little bit more of a predicament for a lot of teams to have to rush plays versus being able to just kind of slowly but surely move their way down south, and kind of an unpredictable map when these things happen. So maybe that's leaning towards why we're seeing teams getting a little more aggressive, but we're also just seeing confidence, and with a lot of new squads as well. Vamo Carrere, 07, you can see multiple opportunities for teams to say, hey, we feel confident with the changes that we made over this last split. We want to put them to the test because we believe in ourselves.
No one banking on station as well, so this is suggesting a very hard pull up towards Checkpoint and surrounding areas, and that is very difficult for the teams moving in late, Rain Day, because we've got, like, what, 5 chokes around Checkpoint that you've got to try and move through. There's no easy passage really into this POI, and even if you end up getting through the chokes, you might be on the low ground where you're going to be griefed by those who are above you, or as Vamos Correa have found, they made it to the low ground, but then there was already a team with them, and you just don't have the room to play. Sure, there's plenty of pillars that you can hide behind, but you're constantly on the run, and you never really know when you might run into another squad.
And that is the difficulty here. You're going to see it in a moment as this round 2 begins to close. It is a long way from home.
Wow. For
ExoClan Element 6. You see teams like Alliance, they're comfortable, but they're still on the outskirts, actually flying over right now. And you can see on Mill, a fight with Alliance about to take in. These are the ones we call the potential champions. They played the most consistent Apex and EMEA so far. Can they be consistent here in this fight? Hockey's already losing most of the blue shield, 75 health down, but it's fine with the catalyst walls held up and the smoke's there to delay. Digi-threat as well to work with. On the rotation, everyone just stalling out of it.
Yeah, great barricades coming from Effect as well, just to try and manipulate this fight in whichever way Alliance want to try and work it. And again, barricades another door, just continuously forcing this team back, frustrating them, poke damage, make them heal, and getting to the position that you want. And now Alliance are able to just find themselves on the outside here. That's what they wanted to get. They didn't want to be stuck in a kind of close quarters fight where they might have been in a poor position, might have been able to get shot from high ground. Now they're able to escape this fight, and they can take it if they want, but they might start thinking about rotation.
And it's just what happens next too, which they're so good at. If they do win that fight, LVH is very, very close by, and they would probably be on the low ground or put themselves in maybe a bit of an extended position. So wisely pulling out to the outside, as you had mentioned, Dan. What does that though mean for the rotations in the from now on? Because they are choosing to maybe try to pepper some of these teams up north. 07 ANC outplayed, running in front of them, behind them still Aftermath as a duo. Yuki keeping eyes in the back of his head and in front as he takes on the role of that conduit. 60 extra health over to Hockey's, which uses it immediately in this engagement. Effect trying to see if he can get some damage, as 07 does look to be maybe on the outskirts of that one. Only 2 alive and some damage already taken.
Yeah, this is a tough one for Alliance because they know if they get involved, there's the potential that the team that they were already fighting behind them could then suddenly join them in that skirmish. And this western side is an important area to take because I spoke about those choke points. The western side has quite a large choke point, one of the bigger ones going into checkpoint. So it is a good position to be able to hold and dominate if you're able to win. But there's like, what, 5 teams here on this west side? So it's not going to be an easy task whatsoever.
ANC outplayed, split in between Alliance and the full English. On top, Effect finally hitting a couple of shots. It's not the laser beam we're used to, but maybe it's not the character we're used to seeing Effect play as well. Notably on the horizon, some changes over the course of the season, but maybe just more of a responsibility. Yuki also on the conduit. We know of him as a 1v1 star, but that character inherently needs to be keeping an eye on her teammates at all times. So as much as they've stayed the same, taking on some different roles and responsibilities this season, Alliance, maybe a sign of growth, maybe a sign of what was missing in terms of getting over that ultimate hump and claiming the championship.
And for some teams who kind of struggled in 3v3 fights, Conduit is the perfect answer because it just gives you that extra option of a little bit of oomph, a little bit of just firepower that you need in those 3v3 engagements just to try and stay alive. And that survivability can be massive, as now 07, who are holding prime position, some might say right now, are getting pushed. This is where the circle's going to be heading towards, and they were really holding this choke. There's a lot of smoke that's gone down, and Nags has fallen.
This is tough. Nasky seeing Amphi have to get that shield battery off finally, but Nags probably not able to get back up at this point. They have to go downhill. They're going to hope for a crawl. Maybe that team goes and gets distracted with something else, but it's E6 in case Winnie. I think he's going to keep his eye on the prize here.
You'll be all right.
R99 from that range won't work. 308 in the Nemesis, though. So feeling confident. It's still a 2v2. Trying to get that res. The Arcstar will delay any peak. And it's looking like it's getting worse and worse for Nasky and Amphi as time goes by.
18 squads remain as round 3 starts to close. This is not what we were seeing in scrims. Everyone playing far more conservative, trying to find those positions, trying to get into those early rotates, as now we're starting to see the kill feed start to light up a little bit. VQ have lost one, so Dell's gone down as well elsewhere, and Alliance still trying to take this fight, and it's Alliance versus former Alliance. You love to see it.
Oh man, life's so many moments after games, in lobbies, hanging out with this duo of Hockeys, and now look at this squad, Yuki and Effect. They've made a name for themselves in such a different way. Life's trying to do that as well with his new squad. 17 left, and you're going to see them start to fall here as this zone in the next one begins to pull. And you're right, they just back off. I mean, is that seems to be the play that a lot of teams are doing here. It seems to be conservation.
It's just so risky to take these fights with so many teams in the area, and I think they know it. They saw the teams that were coming from the southern side. Elsewhere, AM taking the fight. Karev being the last player remaining goes down. So do ExoClan, Aftermath fall too. We've seen 3 squads just fall in the space of merely seconds. Now Alliance, who were moving north, say, okay, well, if you're retreating, let's suddenly push south. Let's get this KP is 40% worse. Eliminated. Shiv goes down. Cold also fall. Suddenly we're down to 11, Rain Day.
And this doesn't seem like it was conservation. It seems like it was an awareness of what is going to happen happen as these teams have to rotate south, and Hockey's and Alliance have picked up on it. From that moment I was talking to now, 7 squads have died. The truth is there's just not enough space so far in Storm Point. Missed Kraber shot from Matafe. They're orgless and hungry. They're still looking for that first meal with the Kraber. Not sure they're going to be able to find it right here, though. Really good use of inside that cover, but they know that that's where they have to go. Trying to find an opening, although it's just not going to happen. But behind them comes trouble.
Yeah, this is where they can go, and this is what Alliance have poised themselves for perfectly. Alliance saw where the circle's going, and they say, if we control the southern side, we have a chance of winning this game. We just need to grief. We don't need to commit. Just hold the south side so no one's going to be behind us, and they do that job. They punished Orgless and Hungry, who are trying to desperately survive, but Unlucky will go down. So did 2R1C. 8 squads now remain. Passion win that fight, but Alliance control the southern side of the circle.
I mean, it's just Alliance. That's all that it is. 0-0. I'm not sure what that was. Goes down, not going to be able to get gotten. I can't tell if that was just looking for something or it was just a poor decision, but he leaves his teammate, goes into a full 3, gets down, not going to be able to get recovered there. 7 squads remaining. This game has shifted on a knife's edge, and it has shifted all the way towards Alliance, because as we pulled back wide and revealed they were the one holding the Razor in the first place and have just taken it off the table and stabbed it in their opponent's backs. What a move from them. Primetime position, now LVH, Red Dragons, Element 6, Infinite, and 1 member of 07 still alive, Dan.
Yeah, so E6, Infinite, Red Dragon, 07, they're fighting on that eastern side, and it is going to be a right old skirmish over there. You have to try and stay as healthy as possible because there are so many teams. Infinite go down, but Case when he falls to a grenade, and now that will just be the chance for the other teams to be able to push in and finish off E6 here. Slab will try as he might, but it's not going to work out. 4 squads now, as Red Dragon will eliminate the last remaining player. But look at this again, LVH and Alliance fighting for prime position on the western side.
They've got to keep Yuki alive. He's the conduit. He doesn't have enough right now to get the shielding up, but that's a really good piercing. Spikes from Effect. Oh my goodness gracious. Doesn't miss a bullet. Effect doing Effect things. Hockey's still alive with the red. He shows up and gets deleted. What was that? That was an instant delete button. How did that work? Oh my goodness. Red Dragon, I believe, and LVH with 07 now the only ones alive to make a move.
There's a cheeky Nasky in the lobby, hiding as a lone rat into the top 3, and still has a chance to potentially win this game if you play it right, because now RD are down to just 2. So are LVH, I believe. So Nasky needs to keep close, needs to have a little look in on this one to see if he can pick up some action.
Wipes, we mentioned him as one of the former members of Alliance. He's got a new squad now and something to prove. Will they prove it here? It's LVH, the final 2, and I think it's just Nasky who's going to show up and say hello. You guys want to cook? You want to make something? He's like, nah, we got our meal prepared. We got the dub. LVH, your champion here in game 2 as we kick off our split.
Nasky just a little bit too late to the party, which is exactly his personality. I imagine he's the kind of guy who does turn up late to a party. He's too cool for it, right? But elsewhere, I mean, Alliance, the fact that they weren't able to win that fight because they got griefed by Red Dragon, it was a massive one against LVH on that western side. Those two teams were kind of posturing up against each other for quite some time, and the fact that LVH came out on top in the end, I mean, it was a game-winning fight.
Yeah, it was a game-winning fight. And, you know, what's so curious about it, too, we saw them have a moment against Alliance, but we also saw, really, I think, some of the questions that we stated at the beginning get answered. LVH, a lot to prove. Will they end up performing, especially on their debut, as somebody who's worthy of contending for Europe or EMEA in total? Yes, yes, yes. 7 kills, 12 placement points, a total of 19 to kick it off. 07, you got to give hats off to Nasky for getting 9 points, 10 points total after not a great fighting game, but overall just a great tactical game. They're even tied with Alliance, but Red Dragon, Element 6 having some monster performances and kills, Dan.
Yeah, I think the kills that we've seen from teams on both sides of the circle, very important. E6 playing in a very different way, but again, showing that they are a squad who will be aggressive, that can play edge effectively. I love the way Alliance played that game. It was so intelligent, but unfortunately for them, when they pushed that western side, they had to take the fight against LVH, and it was just really the extra damage from Red Dragon that pushed them off of the ability to be able to win that game for me, but they still had a very successful one. And then a few teams who really struggled on the other side of the leaderboard, who again just couldn't quite get going. going, whether that be down to a poor rotation, maybe they didn't get ring console information early enough, so they just had to move on a whim. But there was also a couple of teams who lost in those early fights. My heart goes out to the boys who dropped over at Northpad and sadly were griefed by Mind, who had moved from Checkpoint, and it's No Days Off, who go from having such an incredible game 1 to then 0 points in game 2.
It is unfortunate to start so well and then have that, but I would rather start really well, I think, and then know that, okay, we got to bounce back, not a great game 2, and then have a game 1 where you get 0 points, not even a chance to play. To me, that just starts the day off wrong. You don't want to go into a 6-game lobby like that, wasting 30% of your options on this map specifically. Overall, they'll be happy with 2. They've got to get something done in 3, and you can see overall with our series, this has been a lot of storylines building in just 2 games. Teams we've expected to play well have played well. Teams that we have challenged to step up to the plate have taken on the challenge. LVH specifically, Jay Hanzo, Lifen, the winners of this game. Lifen carrying the kill load and the damage load as well.
Notice the conduits that we see in the top 3 as well, and how important conduit seems to be in the EMEA region for some of these teams. Has really played a vital part in not just early fights, but some of these late game fights as well. Having a player who's aware of when they need to hit that cube, when you need to shield your teammates, is going to be massive moving forward in this year of ALGS.
Well, that's why also when you look at Nasky, Jukes, and Wifes, to me, they play different roles than when we mentioned Alliance. Yuki, I think they fit a little bit better with their play style of keeping an eye on the team. Yes, being aggressive, but not necessarily being the #1 damage dealer on their squad most of the time in terms of who you would put in a 1v1. Yet Yuki does have that role. So it's also very interesting as we watch this season and this meta develop, which role Catalyst and which player, Conduit, actually fits best with. So far, only 2 games to go by. We'll continue to keep track of that as LVH lands at the top. ANC outplayed, and Red Dragon right behind them. Red Dragon, Infinite, and Alliance in a 3-way tie with 20 points all the way down to 5th. And then again, teams on the bottom half, Dan, trying to desperately get their way back up in game 3.
And just a final note on the Conduit, I love that you've picked up on that, and play styles and who should be playing Conduit as well, because there are 2 approaches. You can give it to a support player who's going to be kind of at the back of the pack, who can see everything, but you can also put it on your most aggressive player as well, because you shield yourself as well as shielding a teammate, so it just allows you to have that extra little bit of shield in that fight, in that skirmish, and that's why we might see some of the teams who do like to have an aggressive player playing Conduit as well.
Going to be an exciting thing to unfold as the day goes on. So much more ALGS action coming up right after the break. Game 3 coming at you.
Welcome back, everybody. 2 games done already of the EMEA region. 4 to go and 1 more on Storm Point. It's going to be myself on set and the beautiful Dan Gaskin to take you through this next game. And 2 games done, 2 different winners. But one thing to note is we've pretty much gone south for both these zones.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that it was kind of west, but yes, there was a difficult rotation, certainly for those on the northeast that still had to move quite some way. We saw the likes of Full English, who were on that far northern tip, moving very early. Same did Cold. They moved together, but then they were kind of griefed as they were arriving in Checkpoint. And Checkpoint is called Checkpoint for a reason, right? If you pass through Checkpoint, you have to pay a toll, and sometimes it is going to be a player going down, and teams really struggled as they start to move through those chokes around those surrounding areas. So a really interesting circle, but a difficult one to play.
Yeah, certainly a little bit unpredictable. I think a lot of teams had bet on it finishing those buildings just south of where Checkpoint is. You can see they were stacked up there. There was a couple of teams who were playing Checkpoint, of course, just trying to think they weren't going to be able to get into a prio position and maybe playing for some kills of teams rotating in. But that pull away just through the choke and a little bit more towards down beats than the cannon was a little bit of a deciding factor in who managed to end up controlling that side of zone. And I just give it a little bit of a shout out to Alliance. The way that they managed those fights with so many teams surrounding them, a lot of the time you would have seen teams overcommitting to a fight, starting to panic, knowing that they were potentially in a little bit of a pinch, but they kept outputting damage, but most importantly, staying as a full 3, not allowing one player to go down, which would have initiated any of those teams to push and try and clean up that damage.
Well, again, we're going to have the early skirmish. VQ going to be taking the fight on the wall, you'd imagine. And it's going to be an early shred with the Havoc as well, working in tandem with the Conduit, just to make sure you get that gun early on.
Yeah, Havoc is going to be a very good gun to find. To be honest, any gun on contest is a good one to find. And you're going to see with the numbers advantage and a little bit of extra ammo, it should be a pretty easy job. But we said this before when we've seen VQ in this fight, and it didn't go their way. So let's see if they can be shouting Vamos after this one is done and dusted. They have got that initial knock and they have the high ground, but can they be quick on collapsing now on the last player alive, which is going to be Kazakh?
Yeah, last time Red Dragon, they just retreated as a 2, but the fact that they've been able to get 2 knocks now means that they really dominated this fight. So they may have lost it in match number 1, but they've turned it around to make it a 2-1 victory across Storm Point. I think Vamo Korea will be very happy about that one. They had to live through a few contests, or has Kashira throughout his time in the ALGS. Often said that he was targeted because teams thought that they maybe could take advantage of their quick rotations. Well, they were able to win that fight and certainly get a nice little early engagement going in their favor. But again, it's going to be back up to a 2 for Red Dragon, and they will be retreating. So even though they were able to get that initial knock, they weren't able to solidify the full wipe.
Yeah, and it's going to be an opportunity to craft some banners and get back in the game again with Conduit in that composition. So game not over for sure. And I will say on contest, sometimes it's important if you're a full 3, I would say, in that situation, to try and chase down that final player, that final weak couple of players, just to not only assert dominance on the POI down, but just to make sure that that team doesn't get to come back and bite you a little bit later on if they do have that Conduit and the ability to res in that composition. Aftermath, though, going to be on our screen. They're going to be looting up right now. And excuse me, this is going to be Alliance, who, of course, do own all of this real estate on the northwestern side, northeastern side. Still after all these years now, my compass doesn't work, but still, you get the point. All right, Alliance have got a lot of work and a lot of loot to pick up over on that side.
You said it was a southern circle as well. I was just, at this point, we just need to buy you a compass now. We need to give you one.
Do you know what? I'm going to invent my own directional GPS, and everyone else is just going to, I'm not going to tell anyone else what it is, so therefore I can't be wrong.
I think onset GPS would really pop off, and I'd definitely buy into it. It was on Dragon's Den. As the Red Dragons...
It takes you 8 hours to do 20-minute journeys.
Crazy, really, that you're right. Yeah, you want to try and finish off those fights, not only because they might come back to bite you, but also your loot path can be very much harmed by that team who is then retreating and also looting as they retreat, depending on which way they go. But I think it's something we're seeing that's very different from scrims now compared to tournament play, is that people are actually surviving a little bit more and not taking those risks, as everyone just wants to get to that late game.
Yeah, I think the Conduit meta, again, is a contributing factor to that, and another reason to chase the players down, right? You just can't let them get back in the game. I think if you win that contest, you get those knocks, you've got to be quick. You've got to try and finish it. Otherwise, why wouldn't the team come back and contest you in the next game as well, right? Well, no days off. They're going to have their shields taken off. Good shots initially with the 30-30 repeater, but for now, they're going to have to just stay healthy, and in a really good position as well, as the zone does look like it's going to be pulling towards Pylon here. One of the new POIs that we do see, of course, here on Storm Point.
Yeah, Pylon, Echo, Coast seem to be where everyone's kind of heading at the moment. There's no days off. They've lost one. It's whether the two remaining players can actually do some damage. The Volt in the 2 times is not something I like putting together, but it can work in the right hands. And you can see it's doing some flesh damage there as well, but not enough to get that next knock. I think it's a 2v2 right now, but suddenly, just like that, wiped away on No Days Off. And it's, unfortunately, another game where they fall early after their early success in match number 1.
And that fight is a prime example of why Natsuki decided I need a couple of roller boys with me, because they can get that damage down. They can be a huge influence on those team fights if he can direct them into the right position. So the battle for Pylon and the rotate is going to be won by 07 and Passion. We're over now at the Devastated Coast. They're in one of the higher ground positions, which can allow them to just rain down a lot of damage. And you can also see you've got Cold there, you've got August and Hungry neighbors, but one of them looking a little bit more uncomfortable than the other.
Yeah, this could be a very similar circle to what we saw yesterday in APAC. Where it did end towards the Devastated Coast down here, and the high ground could be everything, but also depending on where the circle pulls could be a detriment depending on how it goes. Composition going to be everything when we get to the final circles as well. Having a Horizon could be great. A Catalyst would be very important as well to cut off some of the vision. As Cold, they're down to 2 and they might just go from bad to worse here. They're just trying to survive.
Yeah, you can see this is former teammate against former teammates, right? Tyler has gone down, so he's not going to be able to influence this fight for now. They do use the Catalyst Wall to at least delay this fight a little bit, and by doing so you can see maybe with a knock coming in as well and a little bit of help from Alliance and Hackis up on that high ground. Cold able to survive for now, but it's actually E6 in the middle of all of this carnage. I don't quite know how they've managed to thread this needle, but they're alive and they've got kind of back up.
Kind of, yeah, and at least at the moment they could potentially look to try and just restabilize a little bit.
It is August and Hungry still.
Yes, August and Hungry against Cold. Graceful taking a lot of damage and might have got knocked there as well. It means JMW is going to have all to do here. As Matafe and Kinda, as a 2, will try and push in. First, they might get the banner.
Oh, let's see if they can get Unlucky back in the game. Seems like Cold have been eliminated in the meantime. They were in that pinch, and it's going to be Alliance who moved up. And one thing I love about Alliance and how they rotate to this zone is they do have the Trident available over on the northeast. Thank you. Landing spot that they have, they can get into these southern zones pretty quickly just by going down from the east side of the map to the south. I have a real compass in my hand right now, Dan.
I believe it. I bet it's like it's slightly bronzed and
it was a
tarnished as well.
Yeah, it was a total lie. Sorry. 2R1C trying to do a little bit of damage here. They're going to be inside one of these little buildings. The difficulty of holding these buildings, as you can see, though, on the Devastated coast, kind of lends itself to the name of the POI, right? This is not a place with freshly built buildings. A lot of damage being done means there's a lot of line of sight, and you have to be able to spin around very quickly, deny and position yourself from other teams having those lines of sights onto you. So it's not just a case of hunkering down here. You need to be active, as these teams are showing.
And whilst we see all the commotion that's happening down in the southeast side of the map, spare a thought to Mind and Vamokure and Red Dragon, who are all moving from the north, and they're going to have to arrive to the party extremely late. So much so the party may be over. Full English, they've moved pretty quickly, though, I will say, from the north side of the map. But again, it's going to be quite difficult for them, because if you try and make your way into Devastated Coast from either side, it doesn't matter where you're coming from, there's going to be eyes on you and very little room to play. And then once you arrive, there's not really cover to work with if you're coming through some of those chokes on the east and southern side too. So it's going to be tough, but you know, I've seen some people do some crazy things. There are ways of being able to change the geometry of the map as well. Maybe you can use a Horizon to try and take a high ground advantage, or even use an evac tower to try and fly and surprise a team.
Well, Hackers is having fun at the moment because this position from Alliance just allows them to do so much damage to teams. I mentioned how these buildings are broken and that teams who are inside of them, well, you're going to have line of sights available. So Hackers at the moment is just trying to get those Evo shields up. Only need 70 damage until it's red. And I tell you what, it's a perfect opportunity for us to jump into our first listening. So let's hear what Alliance have to say.
Let's displace there.
Thank you. Where are the fucking prowlers? I'm going to loot that box over there.
Chase you. There's a spider chasing you all the way up at look.
Okay.
Got a spider here.
Could he even come that far?
I'm looting this box, okay? You watch everything.
Okay, shit, Jesus.
By the way, try to group up more heavy. I'm gonna need it soon, okay? If there's from the powders.
I got purple.
You got no ammo, okay?
I got them.
I'm gonna put the car in a better spot.
Group up where? On you?
They just drop heavy somewhere, so I have extra.
Okay. I have 200.
You got a Peter, I guess, right?
Yeah, I have 100 right now, but I'm fine. It's just so I can keep spamming.
Okay. I mean, I can switch the light ammo from back under mind effects taking it. It's all good.
Yeah,
I mean, there should be a bunch of extra.
I have 200
Finally,
heavy.
he came out.
Alive.
My frames are fucking dog shit here. I have 90 FPS.
I was going to say, it's nice to hear the boys' voices. It's nice to get acquainted with them, but information-wise, Dan, not too much to take away from that listening.
Except a spider was chasing one of them. That's about the information we got out of it. You've got to be careful with prowlers and spiders lurking on Storm Point, that's for sure. Now, this is where the action's going down, though. You can see EXO at the moment being chased by LVH. LVH, who have already shown what a dominant force they are in 3v3 engagements, so EXO need to be a little bit careful.
Echo HQ is going to be the location of this fight, and it's fairly isolated. It looks like actually Exo Clan are in the vicinity as well, so there's 3 teams in and around Echo, which is why nobody wants to commit at the moment. And I think that ANC Outplayed are just trying to get away from some of this action. You can see that on your screen, LVH will be safe in this little corner, and they've also got a couple of cat cues to put down to make that a little bit more of a sticky situation. And look, XOQ, they've seen this going on and decided, hey, this is our opportunity to scarp a buy, and sometimes that's a good window of opportunity you have to recognize, Dan. When there's 3 teams in the vicinity, if 2 start to poke at each other, you could use that to hit your rotate.
That being said, moving too early can also be down to your detriment at times, as Full English will take their fight, and you can see EXO just lost a player on their rotation too, as Full English, they're down to 1.5 at the moment. Bryn going to try and bat up. They've got at least a knockdown shield to work with, but now it's just Noises.
Noises on his own as well. You can see the cat wall really caused him some problems because his vision is going to be impaired, and now he's deciding to do a little bit of mountain goat work and see if he can get over these rocks and get away, because he recognized that that is not a good position for him to try and be in. He's going to be chased down though, and you can see that Famokea want to try and clean up this damage, and they have to. They have to go forward until that zone closes, and they've got a lot of business to take care of in front of them.
Yeah, they know they don't have the time to work with here, so they have to be moving somewhat quickly, and they might be able to pick up some extra KP on the way, as they already have done, as Noises now, fight as he might, will go down and Full English get eliminated. 15 squads remaining, so everyone picking up placement points that's left in the lobby now, and VQ can just kind of loot up for a little bit, but then they will have to start moving to the southeast side. Now, for EXO, who we saw earlier, I believe that they lost a player or 2, and that's the downside sometimes of moving into the circle a little bit too soon. They get eliminated, but Alliance also get eliminated, and we see now LVH and Outplayed still holding the south side of the circle.
Yeah, one of the issues for Alliance with the spot they were playing, it was great to get damage, but they were always going to be forced to take a fight at some point to force their way into zone. And with so many teams already inside of that zone, they were just going to take damage from too many angles, and it looks like that was exactly the case of what did go down. And elsewhere, you could see on the western side of things here, where that zone is at the moment, that ANC Outplayed, they're still there. LVH is still there as well. 2 teams who have already had a little taste of each other in our game number 1. As 07, led by Naski, trying to take control of the northern side of things here, but they're going to be forced to retreat.
Yeah, not only forced to retreat, but also forced to use that Dark Veil early. But there was obviously the kind of backup plan here. They knew they had the building, and it was okay. We can poke, we can prod, but if anything gets hairy, we drop the ultimate and we just retreat back to our building that we can work with. So that works out nicely for 07. This isn't going to be a building that's going to keep them alive for the entire game. They will still have to move southeast, but for now, they can stay there, as other teams have kind of arrived and now landed above them. So it's going to be quite a sticky situation for them to try and get through.
Yeah, it's a really good evac from Red Dragon, and this is one of the new pieces of geometry that has been added to Storm Point. Previously, that rotate was so rough. You had to kind of walk all the way uphill, but this way, at least you've got a little bit of a kind of a checkpoint, like you mentioned, to continue your rotate to go from point A to point B without being completely shredded from teams who are just holding that high ground. So this wall is a little bit of premium position. You can see right now they've managed to reset, and they should be safe to move in.
Well, the circle is going to be moving very much to the southeast side of Devastated Coast. So those teams who committed early are going to be in prime position. ALGS and Hungary, E6, 40% worse, 2R1C, all looking in a good spot right now. For everyone else who's outside, they're going to have to either take some fights, look for some KP here, or move soon. You can be the last team to arrive, as Liffin shreds for 180 and is just trying to get some extra knocks here and try and finish off this team.
Yeah, the damage is done, but the problem is Hanzo has gone down, but it's not going to be enough to really turn this fight on its head. Viv's is going to get a pretty comfortable cleanup and res, but is anyone else in position to take advantage of this fight? You can see that 07, they're going to be the team who has to make the move, and they are being held out by Red Dragon. They've been held out by Valkyrie, and you can also see that Aftermath are in the vicinity as well. So there's 3 or 4 teams here that have to move through and stay healthier, just swinging out a little bit to their east to have a look if this fight goes down, and everyone has to scrap if they can pick up a couple of KP as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if only one team survives from this northwest side, and it might not even be a full 3 that survives, to be honest, with what's going to go down and the amount of bullets that are going to be flying everywhere. It will entirely depend on whether people want to commit to trying to out-rotate one another, use the likes of evac towers to try and get up and above people, or whether they will just look for KP, recognizing that this is too much of a difficult circle to actually try and play for. On the southwest side, LVH own that southwest side, but when they arrive to circle, they're going to be griefed as well. So anyone who's not in the circle right now is in a tough spot for sure.
This is such a good rotate, though. You saw, I talk about threading the needle when teams are preoccupied with each other. Look at 07. They managed to sneak through the tunnel and now find themselves safe in the zone. But with a team behind them, Nasky lines up the shot but can't connect, and now the pressure comes in, and that could be a difference maker here.
Could be a difference maker. Instant goes down to try and keep it alive, but Nasky now just trying to dip, dodge, dive, duck to stay alive as best as he can. Remember, he ratted out to the top 3 in the previous game. Will get a chance to reset with the bat and has a knockdown shield to work with. Elsewhere, all those teams from that northwest side are fighting now. Red Dragon, Aftermath, Stay Healthy, VQ, all looking at one another.
And who's inside the zone again? Right deep inside of it. It's going to be LVH. Team who are playing so well today as a unit, positionally and in those team fights. They're in a great spot. Aftermath eliminated as well. 11 squads now remaining as we see the fights continue to take place, as 11 squads is not a position you want to have if you want to win the game and you're in this northern fight, because there's too many teams to almost take care of with everybody stacked up on top of each other.
Oh, that's a lot of damage. Got to be careful peeking that aggressively. Didn't have a digi, but there was at least a response that came through from the rest of the team. As you say, there's so many players at the moment who are in difficult positions that are just trying to stay alive and using any scenery they can to hide behind, as 07 eventually get eliminated. We're down to 9 squads, and you're completely right about LVH, by the way. The fact they were able to fly whilst all this commotion was happening from that southwest side to now the southeast. But as we say that, LVH eliminated in the kill feed by ALGS and Hungary, who take them down.
Yeah, ALGS and Hungary, recognizing they were the worry for them. They maybe got a little bit of an armor check in the fight and decided, hey, if we push them out now while everyone else is fighting on the other side of the zone, then we command even more space here, even more of a god spot, and more importantly, even more loot to play with. And kinda, he has a digi threat as well. No Bangalore in the lineup, but if they get smoked and pushed, he's gonna be able to do damage.
So a slight calm before the storm as round 5 now will be closing. Stay Healthy, Red Dragon, E6, 40% worse, 2R1C, all have to move. ALGS and Hungry, VQ and Cybercats can stay where they are for now.
Red Dragon gone down, 7 squads now remaining. The high ground is only safe for the time being, but E6 have managed to, at least through all the carnage that's been going down, get themselves back to a full 3. Valkyrie are going to be eliminated as well. So now we have ourselves with 6. But with a little bit less of a congested lobby, there's an opportunity here for them to maybe find somewhere to play. But look at 40% worse. This is their zone. This is where they were dropping, and now maybe they have an opportunity to put some points on the board.
And now E6, they were fine and dandy in the height, but now they have to drop and they have to join the engagement. Slab hits the Beast of the Hunt to try and get any extra vision. Does shred, but falls himself as 40% worse. They're eliminated, but E6, they stay alive and might be able to get Slab back on his feet.
But look who's trying to move in and clean it up. It's going to be Kinda and ALGS and Hungry. They see the opportunity to third party and take control of this southern side of the zone, and they're doing exactly what they did against LVH just a few moments ago. They want to own this zone. They want all the space they can find, and boy, they are doing a pretty good job of it.
Yeah, that was great aggression, similar to what we saw from Alliance in the previous game, just recognizing which area of the map you have to own, and you can't allow teams to take space on you. And now ALGS and Hungry will have the entire of the southern side, and they force anything that remained up to the northern side, which will then prove a problem for those who reside there. So Stay Healthy, Cybercats, Element 6 are on the north.
They didn't see him. Cybercats survive. Oh no, you gotta put your glasses on. It's as simple as that. And will that come back to bite Stay Healthy? That's the question. Vacuum is going to be destroyed. They have control of this building, and they have sent a zone, but they don't know that Solo is there.
Not just one, there's two. E6 also have a remaining player, K Swinney, the man who likes to be a thorn in anyone's side. I'm sure could prove to be a problem in this final circle as well, especially as a Bang. Having the ability to smoke, if he has a Digi as well, could really be a massive threat in this final zone.
He had a grenade in his hand. He looked like he was about to do some serious damage with it as well.
Evac tower going to be taken down. And August and Hungary on set, I mean, they own this southern side. They're in great position, but it's all about these rats. K Swinney, though, has been spotted out and the rat trap has been laid.
It certainly has. He had an armor swap to play with. The only problem is he doesn't have it anymore. Blue shields is all he's going to have. They tried to push but weren't able to deal with it. Does he have a bang ult? Because that could cause some real problems in these final moments as well. August and Hungary, they took control of this south side of the zone and they have spotted out the final player. Cybercats will be eliminated. And now you can see the Solo has an opportunity here, everyone. Because August and Hungary could do damage. And SH could do damage to August and Hungary that might open the door for a little Swinney rat play.
Swinney in the top 3. And as you say, we've seen it happen before. We've seen rat plays still find victories, but mainly he's going to be looking to try and finish top 2 as now Dark Veils go down, just to give a little bit more coverage, a little bit of an ability to move here. But OH, they try and respond with some ults of their own, but E6 go down. K Swinney's fallen. Now it's a straight 3v3.
Straight 3v3. The only problem is one team has extreme height, but they will have to drop in just a few moments' time. Conduit always down as well. They're having to retreat to the other side of that Dark Veil, but the first knock comes in and it's going to be Kinda who falls, but August and Hungary will clean up the damage, and the team who have been through a lot in the last few days return to the fore here in EMEA. Their first win, continuing to show us they will be a contender in this split.
The Black Hole proving to be a little bit vital there, really, just to really frustrate their opposition as they threw that one and tossed that one where they were trying to survive and just get a little bit of shield swaps or any ammo, any loot they might have needed in that final zone. But K Swinney kind of ruined it for them a little bit. Just the fact he was there, the knowledge of him being there, I think they knew they had to seek him out. They had to try and take him out of the game, and it just allowed August and Hungary to hold that high ground. But it was their initial push on that southern side to force all teams away from them. They did it all game. They forced teams when they were in buildings, whether they're on the southern route. It didn't matter. August and Hungary said, we're going to dominate this side of the zone so we can win this game. And they win it with 13 kills.
Yeah, very, very impressive. 25 points in total for August and Hungary. Stay healthy with another good result, though. 13 points for them. E6 with Swinney surviving to that top 3, get some extra placement points to end up on 16. But I think you're right. It's the way that August and Hungary controlled that zone. Once they had an opportunity to fight, maybe got armor checks and realized it was isolated, they weren't afraid to take it, to keep that space in their control. 2 occasions where we saw that, one against LVH and then moving in on E6 after they dropped off that ship, or the high ground, I should say. They managed to control it and win those fights pretty convincingly. So that's what put them in position to win it, owning that side of the zone. And most importantly, Dan, as we move to page 2, controlling that zone but winning the important fights.
Yeah, I think that when LVH were able to position themselves so close to August and Hungary, they knew they had to take that fight. And even though we might not have seen it on our screens, it could have been the most important fight of the game for August, winning that one and showing why they're going to be a real threat in this region. Sadly, it's another 0-pointer for No Days Off after their incredible start in match number 1. A tough rotation for the likes of Cold, the likes of Full English, yet again as we headed to the southeast. But Storm Point is going to be done, so no real northern circles. We kind of went west, maybe slightly northwest, but nothing northeast, that's for sure.
South.
Who knows at this point?
South to me is anywhere not north, okay? It's kind of what works, how we do things in England, right? You're either in the north or the south. It's as simple as that. Nothing else really exists. But No Days Off, like you say, they're having a little bit of a struggle at the moment. Maybe they do need to have a day off. Maybe they do need to just put their feet up and rethink things, because it's been a tough start for them. Full English as well, having a little bit of a slow start, but I'm sure they'll pick it up now we head over to World's Edge. But Storm Point, we did get to see some of those new POIs being in those end zones there, Evan, and a lot of fun with them as well.
The only question is, do I need to give you Apple Maps to figure out, how to get there or something? I mean, we talked about a compass earlier on, but
about you suggesting that, because that is the worst of all of the GPSs to use.
Hey man, I got Apple CarPlay. I'm sorry, this isn't sponsored. I just got to say, it works for me. It seems like you guys are the ones
I'm
having
Google Maps guy.
directional issues. Listen, I'm not okay. Let's get back to the game here, because for me, a couple of things I actually really like to see there. My 2 cents on it. One, Element 6, I think had a case-winning I'm him game. He had about 6 kills going into that solo play, which is exactly what you expect from an IGL leader like that, to be able to put his team in contention. I feel like they actually are, really the top squad so far in terms of consistency that we've seen after these 3 games. And you're right, no days off, 2 bad performances, but a new squad, 18-year-old IGL, you get 19 points or so. It's about 6 points average a game. I think they're in a decent spot heading into World's Edge. And obviously, if it was Vex, I feel like we'd be saying, well, obviously they get a win. They're doing well. But it's Orgless and Hungry, and this new identity, maybe we're catching up with what they've already told us, which is we're taking the first spot. 25-point win certainly gives us some thoughts about that. Well, all of that and much more to say. And by the way, we're not the only ones who get to say it. As our players take a little bit of a break, we want to bring in a special guest for halftime and talk a little bit about what they've seen over the course of this first 3 games in Split 1. However, I'm not going to say who it is yet. Mark, is there a good clue that you could give to who might be joining us today? I mean, what, Dan too? Anybody off the top of your head? A good clue.
Think of an animal that flies.
Oh, that is good.
A griffin?
A griffin.
No, that doesn't quite work.
That leads me to another question that I've been seeing viral right now. Could the Griffins have carried Frodo just to the top of, Mount Doom, like just from the beginning? The ones who carried him down, couldn't they have just skipped the whole Lord of the Rings trilogy by just doing that?
And they could have,
but then we wouldn't have had one of the best books in existence.
There you go. There you go. All right. So what do we call it? It's a griffin. It's a falcon. Oh, wait, it's a hawk. Hey, it's Jayhawk joining us on the desk for our halftime recap. Jayhawk, how you doing, man? Welcome. And it's been a while since we've seen you. It's been since you joined us on the desk at Championships in the UK last year.
I'm doing amazing, guys. It is an honor to be here with you 3 legends once again. I'm excited.
Before we get into what you think about what's happened in these first 3 games, catch us up on your new year. And since we've seen you, you're still making content, but what's been going on in your life? Any new plans for the year? What are your, what's the update for the fans who are watching?
Yeah, so big announcement, actually. I do work full time, but Apex stuff has been really going great for me, and I will be going part time at my current job to devote more time to the watch parties, watching scrims, match days, more videos, everything. So it's pretty exciting news, and this is a main broadcast exclusive because I actually haven't even told my stream yet.
Wow.
That is awesome. And I just want to say, I don't think I gave you a good enough intro, AJ Hawk. You've been a content creator for our scene, at least over the last year, in a big way, creating not just high-level ALGS, but personalized stories about some of your favorite personalities, players, teams, and in an in-depth way that really isn't seen, not just in YouTube often, but especially in the esports category, 30, 40-minute videos. So thank you for what you're doing. If you haven't seen them, go check them out. I want to let the other guys go get a chat with you as well, Mark, and spend some time with Jayhawk.
Yeah, firstly, congratulations on the big move. We're sure that you'll succeed moving into it. We will love your content. But I mean, it's great to have the ALGS back. Of course, it's been very exciting the first 3 games here in EMEA. I mean, what are your takeaways from what you've seen so far? Because it seems like, as always with EMEA, scrims have played very different to the Pro League days.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, with scrims, obviously, things are just a lot more wide open. Teams are taking a lot more risks. And we're seeing so far in all 3 games that the teams who have that priority to the zone are really coming out on top. And that aggression that we saw in scrims is obviously not there on the same match days. So teams are being a lot more conservative on the contest. One goes down, teams are running away. So this always happens when match days come back around, but it's just nice to see it back in the swing of things of 18 teams still alive in round 4.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I want to see. I want to see those late games with so many teams just competing against each other. And we're actually going to look at some of the final, look at some of the final circles with you, Jayhawk, and you can run us through and run us on your opinion on what went down. Is there anything you kind of saw that really made you want to make a video?
Yeah, so this game one I thought was super interesting because I was actually watching from 07's POV, and Nasky and them thought it was a South Barometer pull. They were wrong. A lot of teams like them, Orgulus in Hungary, E6, all thought it was South Barometer. It pulls over to Cenote, and we see teams like LVH, Alliance, Full English really get to take advantage of here. But ANC outplayed, perfectly called this zone, taking the tunnel spot early in Cenote, and they came out firing once Alliance started making pushes, once Aftermath started making pushes. They were there to clean up everything once the fighting starts to kick off in the end game. And I just can't help but think what a zone call from them, considering how much the lobby thought it was a Southern Barometer pull.
Yeah, there was a lot of teams who really struggled with this pull in particular. Like, everyone was committing to Barometer, and yeah, that's just one of the things about Apex Legends, and what shows us about the best IGLs is how they pivot when things go wrong with those rotations. Moving to match 2, what did you see here?
I mean, another sort of similar zone. It's a little further to the north. LVH, once again, getting the benefit of these pulls. They land at Down Beast, or so they land at Cenote. They pull up to Down Beast, perfectly third party to take this height. Alliance tries to come in from the south, and they manage to hold it off. And the whole time I was sitting here wondering, Nasky, the rat, what is he going to do in this game? He doesn't actually end up influencing the end game, but he is able to get second with LVH finally cleaning it up. And once again, another zone where it seems like the teams who had that priority, like I mentioned earlier, were truly taking advantage of it, considering how close they were to the endgame pull.
Yeah, this one was interesting on my eyes, too, just watching Alliance former members go back and forth against one another. I don't know if you were watching Alliance's POV right there. Hockeys gets absolutely lit up. I'm not sure if that was from Nasky or if he was in a 1v1 that we didn't catch on screen, but it definitely, whatever it did, set it up so that it was a clean, easy wipe for Wifes and LVH to take the W. But in game 3, this really became the Orgulus in Hungary, coming out party for this tournament, this split one day. What's your feelings on just what's been happening with them picking up kinda? And we've also seen the drama with Vex no longer being their representation as an org. So what's your take on them starting off in split 1?
Well, clearly they've been one of the best teams in EMEA for so long. They haven't quite been able to show that on LAN, but I was a really big fan of the kind of pickup. I feel like it puts Unlucky in a situation where he can truly thrive as the main fragger, because Tyler previously had kind of filled that role, and I feel like this combo of Unlucky and kinda is really strong. But this game was quite interesting because of how they started it. They got to a situation where it was just Matafe last alive in a pretty tough situation, and actually being able to come out with a victory, the resilience they're showing despite losing their org and being in that spot early in that game, what a performance in that third game.
That's a great word, resilience, especially when you see that they are now third overall, tied with 07 in the top 5. Element 6 taking that after a great 16-point game 3 with Case Winnie staying alive as the solo. LVH winning game 2, found themselves in second place. No days off, pretty good, decent start. I mean, I would say a decent start for a younger team. PSQ qualifiers, cold, full English, passion. Our 3 bottom teams still trying to find a way out, as this is the standings after 3 before we head to World's Edge. I want to get your thoughts too, Jayhawk, because you're going to be joining us as well for North America. A little tease as to some of the things you're going to be expecting there, some of the exciting storylines ahead before we let you go.
North America, I mean, the sheer amount of powerhouse teams in that region now with Moist coming over, it's scary. I don't know how it plays out. There are so many teams in that region that truly feel like they could be making the push for LAN. Even some dark horses like E8 have been dominating in scrims recently, so we could see some things shaking up, and I'm very interested to see how North America plays out, especially with Conduit, because NA, compared to some of the other regions, feels like they haven't fully embraced the Conduit as much as EMEA has or APAC North has. But I do think we're going to potentially see a lot of Conduit, and it's going to be very interesting to see how one of the most aggressive regions really deals with that Conduit in those fights.
It's a great point that you made. The delay in adopting fully the Conduit onto most of the rosters in A, or at least the hesitation. You can see it with some of those teams, and usually the top teams, most of the rest follow suit in that region. We'll see what happens though, Jayhawk. We'll be able to talk about it after game 3 in North America, our broadcast a little bit later, but get some rest, buddy. Enjoy watching the rest of the games. We'll talk to you in a bit. Thanks for joining us, AJ Hawk.
Appreciate you guys.
Always fun, fellas, talking to someone who loves ALGS as much as we do, and I know the fans enjoyed that one. Make sure to check him out on his socials, AJ Hawk on Twitter and on YouTube. Also, if you're interested in playing, I know that's a big jump, watching a video to actually playing in the ALGS, but hey, if that's the kind of Sunday that you're having, go ahead and check out the Challenger Circuit. Register your team to compete in the ALGS. February 3rd through 5th is when our next Challenger Circuit begins. You have until January 31st. That's 10 days from now to be able to register. So go ahead and take a look at that. Battlefy.com/ALGS. Gaskin is going to take a break. Mark, you and me now as we head off into game number 4 and World's Edge, which, I mean, 2 different stories there. Obviously, new map, new changes sometimes to teams and comfort, but also just today is split 1. It's new beginnings. Will we see one of these teams like LVH, like 40% worse, make that story come alive? Or is it going to be more Orgless and Hungry continuing to stay at the top? We'll find out here as we start off with a nice contest at Tree.
Yeah, it's going to be Endio and Mind who are going to be fighting here. A little spray through the smoke is going to do a huge amount of damage. The Conduit is probably the one legend I would say that if you can focus in a contest, focus the Conduit, because that means that the Q is going to be taken out of the equation. And it looks like at the moment, Mind might be able to win this one if they can hit some juicy longbow shots. It's not very often we get this rain day. It's a Sentinel versus longbow fight, and the Sentinel comes out on top.
My goodness, that is scary. Not the position you want to be in. 1 shot away from death and 2 snipers staring at each other. Sherbert representing No Days Off.
He hit
and
it.
Mind.
Oh, he hit it.
Oh my, has been blown. Sherbert with the Sentinel. Oh, Mark, what a start.
I mean, Sherbert is a little bit tangy, and that shot was a little bit tangy. That's going to certainly just do a little bit of work on the tongue. My goodness, the Sentinel, I will say, on contest, if you can get it and get away into a position, it is a 1-shot kill, basically. It really can do so much damage. You hit that headshot, and you've just seen what a difference it can make. But it's one thing to have it, like I say, on paper with the stats to do the damage. It's another to do it under pressure. So a great job there hitting those Sentinel shots as LVH under a little bit of pressure here as well.
Yeah, and just to back on that Sentinel, that last little point, just the confidence you need to have, because the fire rate is so much slower, it feels like, than that longbow. So you've probably got 1 shot. You've probably got 1 shot and you got to make it count. If you hit it, you're going in. If you lose it, you're going home. So I just love the confidence from Sherbert. And that's going to give their team another chance to start it off here. ANC outplayed, also one of those teams that we had not brought up in our pre-show, but now they have made us talk about them taking first win in game 1. The Italian trio, a long tenured squad, 25 points. As we take a look at the overall map, it's going to be obviously a much more spread out, I think, even pace game. We saw some northern pulls in Storm Point, which really crammed the lobby up as well, but we're going to wait to get some info on the second zone. Seems like everyone's content to be looting except for that early contest that we saw.
Yeah, interesting to see Orgless and Hungry actually leaving Siphon as well, because it looks like it could be a zone that pulls towards Siphon, but they don't have that ring console information, so that could come back to hurt them a little bit. It's a great zone, of course, for them if they knew that, and it's looking like it might be a little bit of a misstep or a misplay. We'll have to see how their zone read is as the game does progress. But Passion at the moment over just outside of Harvester, they do have that information. They are moving into a position to try and clean up a little bit of damage that they have done on that high ground. The Rampage is maybe not everyone's favorite weapon at the moment, as you can see why, not being able to connect with every single shot. But when you can start to do that damage rain, then you really can do some pretty beautiful things. LVH are gone.
I just think it's actually one of those underrated weapons right now, believe it or not. With the nerfs to the R9 and the car, though they're still good and this fight's still going, I just love the output that the Rampage can do as an actual weapon. And I know that, yes, it's a little bit of a slower fire rate. You have to get used to it. It doesn't blend the same way that I think, you would when you're using maybe 30-30s, triple takes, and you're going into the cars R9s, but I just feel like the raw output is good enough that if someone on your team holds this, you really get a lot of openings, especially from range, and make it difficult for teams to push up to you. It sucks close range. I'm honestly thinking that you can't really hold on to it as a main damage dealer, but if you have the ability to run that with something like a car, with an R9, with a Volt, I actually think it provides a lot of value that people aren't really aware of right now and maybe just not comfortable with. Obviously, everyone's going to have their favorite choices of weapons, but it's always been a favorite of mine, and I'm going to fight for it till the day I go.
I was gonna say, you've probably seen it in his best use case there, right? Someone running across open ground that you can just kind of trim them down with a little bit. 40% worse. They've got a Sentinel. We've already seen how much fun this weapon can be, unless you're on the receiving end of it. More fun to have it in your hands. And looking at the armor check, it's not looking great at the moment. They are severely underdressed for this situation, but they are in a good position. And with that Sentinel, a couple of shots that could change very quickly.
Love that charged up shot. 158 to the head. If you're able to connect to it. Obviously, you got to do a lot of things and sacrifice the shield cell, but it's not too much, especially if you have 6 or in excess, which most of these pros run around carrying. Still early round zone pulling in. We haven't seen where it's going to land just yet, but that will give a major plot twist to this current story where everyone's really content to just fight from range. Horizon Q up to make it a little bit easier and a little safer actually to get to the evac tower and make it away without getting shot. And ANC Outplayed will make their move now, heading towards the center of the map.
Interesting to see where this zone is going to be going. They're going to be playing for the truck, and we do see this finish around here, just outside, sort of stuck between Tree and Siphon quite a lot. And the truck is such an interesting kind of conversation topic because it always feels like it's a good hold. And if you've got a Watson, yeah, it is a little bit easier to hold because you can avoid those spam grenades coming in. But there's just so many LOSs that you can be hit from when teams start to collapse on you. And if that gen does go down and it isn't placed in the best position, then you just become sitting ducks for those grenades to fly in.
It feels like a great top 10. It feels like a hard win. This is a hard win spot, a great spot to get out of the riffraff and get into at least a few points. But it becomes very difficult because it's so obvious that you have this wanted territory. It's like, you know, you are the one in, you know, the Squid Games remake with the burger and fries, and everyone realizes I haven't eaten all day, and they just start grabbing and grabbing. Before you know, nothing is there. It gets people's attention. It is safe, but we'll see how ANC Outplayed use it. I think for me, teams that win from there know exactly when to abandon it and make a move. And obviously they've got the experience. Hopefully that will give them a little bit more guidance. This zone now about to fully close in. We've still got most of our teams alive in the lobby. It's going to be a southern pull, and this is actually going to shift quite a bit from the north side, who are kind of playing there, slowing it down. But for those who have played south, they're going to be feeling pretty good about holding, and especially trying to get rid of the teammate enemies who are nearby.
Alliance under pressure here. You can see it's Passion who are pushing this building. They want to try and take one of the floors, and also Denze has a Digi, so the smoke is going to be perfect for them to get some initial damage. The question is, do Alliance have a Digi threat? Because if they do, then this will be a little bit more of a fair fight. But Alliance trying to take that high ground, and Effect has only got white armor at the moment. You wonder if that's a swap as they came under pressure in this fight, but it's not looking great at the moment for Alliance. They've had to give up a little bit of ground here, and Effect will go down because of that white armor. He's just not able to escape.
You can tell they were in trouble as well. At least they kept the conduit alive. This is Yuki and Hockeys. They can do this as a duo. They just got to get a lot of damage. The grenade hits 55. Hockeys takes a lot. The Q not up for another 10 seconds, and that's going to be the end of Alliance. There's no way they can get out of this. I almost caught myself mid-sentence just because he had so many shots there, but it was just too much armor to be able to go through in time. That will be the end for them. 17th place, no points unless they got a few kills beforehand from Alliance. That's a few games in a row. They really haven't shown up. Not a great start to World's Edge.
Yeah, a little bit quiet, and there's a pretty good zone for them, of course, dropping over at thermal station, so not a big rotate for them. They would have been able to play some pretty priority spots, and they've just been pushed out of it and run over a little bit too easily for my liking. You have to wonder if it was the armor difference, if they got an armor check there and Passion decided, hey, we see a white armor, we can run this team over, even if it is Effect. It's just too much HP difference between the two teams to really have a fair fight in this situation. And we talk about recognizing advantages. That's exactly what Passion did. They recognized the advantage and weren't afraid to push it.
Well, that's what I love too about BRs, but specifically Apex. I find that I've made this reference before, not on broadcast, but it's kind of like the multiverse of madness where there's these different timelines. And I feel like most teams can realize these timelines by taking action or taking inaction. And you basically have a chance, maybe a window, a small moment where if you push this, you win this fight, the rest of the game opens up to you and you actually have a clear path to victory. But if you don't, maybe your path to victory isn't for another 6 minutes and you have to just hold tight and then win that fight. And I think part of it is that when you see a team that understands how to take the best path consistently, I look at North America, I think TSM is fantastic at knowing when to push those paths, when to sit tight and wait for that moment. I think when you see that in EMEA, Passion showing a great opportunity of, hey, this is our moment. We get a big team out. We get a great spot towards end zone. And now Passion sitting in maybe one of the best spots in the game.
I just want to quickly go back and talk about ALGS and Hungary. They did leave Siphon. Of course, we've seen where the zone is going. They are playing from launch site at the moment down on the southern tip, and they're going to be able to rotate down from the high ground if they can hold out any late rotators through. So they might be in a pretty good position to actually be involved in this end game and approach with a walk-in that is very, very strong. Speaking of Siphon, though, you can see the one building that will be still inside of this zone before it starts to pull away a little bit is going to be Red Dragon. And they've been kind of in and around the top 10s a few times today, but not quite been able to contribute to that final fight.
One thing I'm noticing too, you mentioned ALGS and Hungary taking kind of an edge approach. Element 6 as well. We're seeing two of the most veteran leaders in terms of IGLs, Matafe, K Swinney, taking this slower approach to this type of zone. If you are a betting person, it's probably a good sign that that's a good direction of how to play this one. A lot of teams, though, vying still for that very center spot, and now we're starting to see a few drop. Kurev, who had that great play in the hallway last game, now ultimately going down to 2R1C. Not a full wipe for that squad, but still damage being done for Aftermath. Vamo Kashera, they found themselves in a different RV, still in the center of zone, but it's going to be difficult possibly to maintain that yet again. And especially with Nasky on top of them, but it doesn't seem like that's caught their attention. As we get back into it, an overview of the map, Mark, a lot of different ways for this to go. Team's pretty content, though, not to push this too far right now, at least until the zone forces them.
Yeah, we saw ANC outplayed, who are center zone at the moment. They were the team that flew into that truck, right? They took that early, and I like the fact that they're taking space around the truck. It's pretty frustrating to see as a viewer and a backseat gamer when you see a team just stuck inside and trying to bunker down and not looking to control space and deal damage on teams rotating in. It's such an important thing for them to do, especially with what I've described as a little bit of a low priority defensive structure with that truck to work around. It's not completely safe. You don't have huge doors that you can play behind and kind of peek shot from, so they've got to control space, and they're going to know there's going to be teams rotating in from launch site. One of them is going to be ALGS and Hungary. There's an interesting fight actually developing over at launch site with Cold, 40% worse, and ALGS and Hungary all there and all knowing that they will have to fight for that choke. But E6 inside a tree at the moment on these platforms, they have height over a lot of these teams surrounding them, so they should be able to do a really, really good amount of damage.
ALGS and Hungary and 40% worse. That fight also interesting. 40% worse, at least as we check. The only team running a Bangalore so far. ALGS and Hungary may have swapped over in World's Edge, but at least in Storm Point, that was the case. And in these types of situations, that Bangalore ultimate actually very vital, especially when you're moving, rotating, and looking to take an engagement. As we see another engagement going on, the smokes of a Bangalore, 2R1C, Ushako, and Shiv FPS, just as we mentioned it. He's aiming down sights. No time to even think about the ult. It's been used already just recently, so would have bought some time. And on the other side, it's Tyler FPS from behind, making things worse. This is tough for 40%. And that's going to be the end of them. Cold just with a beautiful wraparound to clean that fight up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care how good you are. We mentioned how the armors just weren't good for 40% worse. And they're going up against Purple Shields and Tyler, who has been pretty much at the top of the kill leaderboards since the ALGS and EMEA got underway. And he does not need a second opportunity. Speaking of opportunities, 2RAS1 Controller trying to take their opportunity to work their way out from this congestion, which is happening in and around Lava Siphon at the moment. Jacko has gone down, but is he going to be resable, or will they have to play this one out as a duo? It looks like they have managed to get him back to his feet. And now you can see Vamo Kashera. They've moved away from that truck, or have they moved away from that truck? I think they're still inside. Kashera back on the crypto as well. He's going to be able to get so much information on what's going on around them.
It's worked a lot for him. Storm Point more specifically, but World's Edge as well last season, playing that crypto, causing havoc, being that thorn in your side right when you're taking an engagement, to have that EMP hit, take 50 of your shield, slow you down, and obviously give what was previously a Sin, now Vamo Kashera and Ashera, a chance to move in. Cold, though, after getting 3 of the kills, maybe 2 of their total 5 points that they've got on this wrap with 40%, trying to hold on to this desperately. Grenade up into the air, could land. It's not going to make it, but a couple of great shots with the Volt. You can see Tyler FPS, JMW, Graceful, not going to give this up easy.
Well, here comes the push then. Cole going to have to go defensively here. And JW, the beautiful Thermite, is going to be able to just slow that push down for a few seconds, which is vital for those shield cells to be popped. Timing in these fights is everything, and that Thermite has maybe just made this a 50-50 instead of a 60-40. ALGS and Hungry want to push this. We mentioned how this is the fight to rotate into the north side of zone and control that choke. Well, now it's going down.
Ooh, and he missed that one big time. Unlucky, though, gets up off the gravity lift. The spacewalk passive means he slides a little farther than any other character would have done, and that means he gets 56 more damage than most other legends would have. Horizon coming in with a spacewalk, and ALGS and Hungry on a high. Can they keep it, though? It looks like threats arise from every single location. They're going to have to get a big shield swap here, Mark. Otherwise, they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, they need to just take their time here and reset. The zone is closing behind them, and they've got 20 seconds or so to just get these heals and then push this solo player. The last player alive is going to be Tyler. He's waiting for that jump to come in. I think he's hoping that maybe they're going to jump over him, but hasn't had the opportunity to pop the shield battery, and that is going to be the end of the game.
This is rough.
Oh my God, he wins one, but can't turn it into a 1v2. But what he has just done is grief the game, because now kind of isn't going to have time with the zone closing behind them to get his teammate back up.
And that's the thing, pushing that way, the way they delayed in taking that fight. That early Thermite from JMW forced that to be 10 seconds too late from when they really wanted to fight. That ultimately results in a player loss. Now 2 rats, 1 controller down as well. A lot of chaos continuing as we head back towards Tree and the eastern side of things. In between that and launch site, outside of where the rotation has occurred, ALGS and Hungry still have 2. Maybe they have a mobile respawn beacon, might have been able to craft the banner, could see some heroics there, but right now we're following Element 6, who are creeping in on the hallway and looking to take the lead from Slab on the Bloodhound.
Big damage coming in. And Element 6 doing a great job of holding teams off, trying to output damage, and this is all about controlling space. This is what I was talking about. It's not just your building, it's the 20 or 30 yards surrounding it that you want to be in control with, and Swinny wants this done. He wants this finished. The hit fight's pretty good, but it's not quite good enough, and now he's going to worry about the zone.
Very risky, but I like it. Slab goes down in that, cracked as well. Not around. Arcstar going to get destroyed by the Watson Jin inside. Case Winnie with the Bangalore ultimate. One of the beautiful elements of this, especially clearing off space. Not a lot that he needs to use it for here. Sherbert's still alive from no days off after that early win at Tree. Man, Elements, and he's still maybe just a Sentinel in a Mozambique. You never know. Anything could happen at this point with Sherbert, but Element 6 do a great job of clearing out their aggressors.
I was gonna say, if he still has a Sentinel, then just saying, his percentage chance of winning the game has gone up a little bit. But E6, they're in a prime position here. You can see they're in the only building, one of the only buildings that's still inside of this zone. Not only are they in the building, they control both levels of it as well, the height and the one below it, which means that anyone who wants to move in, they're gonna have to try and fight against the team up on height. Now, they have to kind of play this patiently here, E6. Hope the rest of the lobby takes care of each other on this northern side, where you can see the other teams have started to stack up a little bit, and then they can move in and pounce at just the right time. That bang ult could be really, really good for creating the space for them to move in.
Very, very important fight here from ANC Outplayed. Willem and Andy Jack's going to grab another KP, and that is going to put them in a top 5 situation. Top 4, I believe, and it's going to be still E6 holding down the building below. The zone has stopped moving in. 4 squads left. Passion, after that early fight, the pick off onto Alliance to take the God spot, well, it's worked out. Top 4 at least, guaranteed at least 5 points. 3rd place will get them at least 7. But they've got to survive. And ANC Outplayed, for all it's worth, Mark, they've done a hell of a job keeping this trailer intact.
They have, and in the meantime, they've held the trailer. Well, E6 have made their move. They've now moved to the north side. They've cleaned up 1 team. So 3 squads still remaining. ANC Outplayed are just waiting to see this damage being done. And now it's going to be their time to move in. Move from the truck and see if they can take the high ground away. Passion will fall in the meantime. It's E6 versus ANC Outplayed. And the question is, can they get the damage done, or will Shakes go down in the meantime? E6 look like they're on the back foot, but now they've turned it around here, Rain.
What a play from Cracked as well. Willem, the last one standing, when it is all E6. Case Swinney with another I'm him moment. It's not the buy one blade, but this time he uses Bangalore's heirloom to seal the deal in our first game on World's Edge. Element 6 on a run.
You love to see it from E6, right? They've been picking up points today. They've been putting themselves in position to make sure that they are contributing to the leaderboards with KP. Well, now they add KP to a first place finish. And I gotta say, the way that they controlled the space around that building when everyone started to try and play underneath it, that was the difference maker for me. And then the opportunity seized, like you mentioned, the timing on that opportunity was taken. They win that fight on the north, and then some really good shots. Sometimes we talk about like the intricacies of Apex Legends. Sometimes you just have to outshoot your opponent, and getting that first knock was the difference.
Yeah, and that was, I mean, I think we caught ANC Outplayed's perspective for the beginning of the fight with E6, but you could just see 2 players down. You could just tell from the pace of that fight how effective Element 6 were, barely missing any bullets, and 21 points, a well-deserved, hard-fought battle. From the perspectives we saw, it seemed like they definitely did a lot to get there. Passion ANC Outplayed, though, they played great games of their own. No days off, bouncing back. A good game in game 1 of Stormpoint. Now a good game in game 1 of World's Edge. They're setting themselves up for a decent finish today if they can keep this up. And as we head to the backside of this, Mark, obviously there's going to be in our bottom 10 teams some people who don't get off to a good start. And one of those teams, surprise, it's Alliance. We know what happened with them. Anybody else catching your eye?
LVH having a little bit of a quiet game, where Stormpoint, they were one of the teams to talk about, right? They were really, really successful in putting points on the board there. We did see them struggle a little bit on their rotate this time around. Full English have kind of been in around sort of, I would say, 10th on average today, but the worry for them is their points are coming from placements, not the kills to go alongside it. Even though when you look at the leaderboards, it's like consistently they might have been around that 10th place. If you don't put KP on the board, you end up around that 15th or 16th overall. So maybe they're going to have to look for a few more KP or be a little bit more successful in those fights. As we take a look at T comparison, the 2 teams we had in our final fight, E6 and ANC Outplayed.
I mean, they did a great job overall. I love setting up stories for these teams. One had a very consistent spot. They trusted into the very end. It got them to 2nd place. I think they did a lot of work to do that because they had hit shots from even inside those windows with weapons like a Volt, which don't usually operate that effectively from range, that made you say, okay, these guys are firing, no pun intended, on all cylinders. But Element 6, that mid-game to early late game where they just held off that building, they fought inside, they had the multiple levels, saved the Bangalore ultimate, cleared their outside as well for the stragglers who were trying to survive and kind of play underneath that building, and then to move up top at the right time and fight from low ground to high ground against ANC Outplayed. I mean, hats off to them, and there's a big reason why they are 26 points ahead of our next closest contender, 16 points ahead, excuse me. What a fantastic, though, showcase of their performance so far today, Mark.
Yeah, I think when you're looking at the overall leaderboards at the moment, the one thing that's sticking out to me is the obvious one, which is E6 at the top. They have yet to have a bad game. And what I mean by that is when a zone hasn't been good for them, they've still picked up KP, right? They've still put points on the board. It is that consistency that we talk about that you are looking for from a team. And I think the great thing for Swinny here is he's found 2 players who in team fights he can trust to just back his calls, to be aggressive and hit shots. And that's what all the top IGLs are looking for at the moment, right? A couple of controller players who are going to be able to move in on your call and output damage to clean up fights as quickly as possible. And I think Swinny himself's been hitting some really nice shots as well, and he's been doing a good job of commanding space for them. So E6, the chemistry seems to be there, and that was our keyword coming in today. Who can find their chemistry quickest, who can be the most effective, and who is going to put those points on the board because of it.
Case Swinny, some people you call controversial. He's not controversial. He's, however, a bit reserved. There's almost like a layer before you're able to really get to him. He doesn't do the same level of I'm out there as some of our other bigger personalities as consistently. But when you look at his fan base and Element 6 as a fan base, they are one of the biggest fan bases in all of EMEA. That crew shows up to every single live event that we do. And online, their support is magnanimous. So I feel that whether we talk about Case Winnie as much as we talk about hockeys or as much as we talk about Nasky, from an actuality standpoint, these guys are pretty much all on the same level in terms of support. And I got to say that Case Winnie certainly showing up that this could be the start of a very important year for him. Great stuff from Element 6. Great stuff from you, Mark, as well. You'll be back with Dan Gaskin in just a second. I'm going to be taking a break. We'll see you here for our next 2 games.
Welcome back once again, everybody, to the ALGS Pro League, and 4 games are done and in the history book. So it means that we only have 2 left in EMEA today, but it has been a very, very interesting first 4 games, Dan. And after we've had those results come in, we can see that E6 is certainly the forerunner here as we head into Game 5 here on World's Edge.
Well, one thing we do know is no one's going to get bonus points from winning more than 50% of their matches today. But E6 starting to create a gap. Could they make that gap 50 points in the next 2 games? Likelihood is no, but that's still something we'll keep an eye on. But the fact they have been able to stay at the head of the pack has been very impressive, to say the least.
I really hope that production can kind of find, like, you know, you win on a slot machine, it goes ding, 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 ding. If you get a bonus point.
You get a bonus point.
You get a bonus point. Well, maybe that's an idea for the future. Maybe I kind of hope it doesn't happen this week now, so they get a little time to maybe work on that. I'm sure that will get approved. Anyway, Dropship is in the sky, everybody. It's game number 5. World's Edge, the old favorite, the old classic, the thing that you just can't get enough of, to be honest with you. E6 at the front of the pack at the moment, Dan, and we'll have to see if anyone is going to push them in these final 2.
Yeah, this is where we're going to see teams really start to get a bit more aggressive if they're at the bottom of the leaderboards. Maybe we'll see some composition changes. Maybe a Revenant will turn up. Who knows? But there is going to be a fight happening. You can see LVH versus 07 going down. And as I say, go down, Liffen has fallen.
This is why LVH did not have a good game number 1 here on World's Edge. Very good on Storm Point, of course, goes without saying, but this is a very different proposition for them, finding 07 pushing them here over at Lava Fissure. And Lava Fissure has been where Nasky is called home for quite some time. Last season, he wants to continue it here, so 07 going to have to move in and finish off this damage and finish off these final 2 players. The Eva Ray is going to help that. Nax is going to have that Q saved as well, so this should be just a case of finishing off the pieces. And it is. There you go. LVH have been eliminated. 07 made it a little bit ugly at the end, but doesn't matter if it's a little bit ugly as long as you get the job done.
We did get to see how high an octave you can go, though, so that was very fun.
No, you didn't.
We've seen nothing yet, sister. But I'm very excited to see.
I'm just saying, there's a reason people call me Mariah when I hit the karaoke.
Dude,
all right?
Who calls you Mariah?
It's the people, man.
Okay, people.
It's the rumors.
We'll look for it. ALGS karaoke coming your way one day, I promise. Circle, let's have a look. We are going. It looks like we're going to be going to the southern side of the circle. No days off. They're going to be comfortable at tree after forcing the team away that they initially had that fight with. You remember in the last game they had a little scrap, but now they're going to be more than comfortable because Mind are down to just 1 and retreating to try and get those banners back.
Yeah, indeed they are. Scarpering away, but again, the banners are going to be retrievable here. The problem is he might have to wait a little bit of time before he can find somewhere to actually get those in, because he's got to think about where he wants to rotate and where there's going to be a crafting station available to do it. So it might just be a little bit of AFKing for Mind until everybody else starts their rotation and they can think about where they want to go. Speaking of where you want to go, this is where you want to go. The zone is showing for all of you wonderful people at home, and you can see once again in a fairly similar position. Last it was a tree zone, and this time we're seeing maybe a siphon zone that's going to be pulling towards some of those open areas in and around the lava. We'll have to wait and see where that zone pull does come, but siphon's going to be a good place to hold. A lot of teams might try and stack up inside of there, or ALGS and Hungry, who of course do drop at siphon, have decided that they want to move over here, and they had a little bit of beacon information as well.
Yeah, Cold also have beacon information at stacks, but they're probably still concerned about the big Maud team. EXO are going to be making their way in via Balloon, and they'll be arriving on this northwestern side of Lava Siphon, and they'll probably be greeted by very little, and quite surprised of the amount of room they're going to have to play here, because the Lava Siphon teams and those teams around are very much playing on the southern tip of Lava Siphon, and that's probably why we're going to see another evac tower going down here, because teams don't want to be caught on the northern side. If you're arriving early, you want to get into one of these prime positions, which is going to be on the southern side of Lava Siphon.
It's interesting to see, you know, you look at Lava Siphon, you're looking at the rotation here, and I'm basing this off of zone for ALGS and Hungry, right? They don't have a ring console, but they do have the survey beacon, and you're probably thinking, hey, they're not going to know where zone goes, but they can play off of the information that they see from maybe the team who land over at launch site, right? If they aren't leaving, if they aren't trying to rotate a little bit earlier, knowing they have a prior position, then they probably realize the pull is going to be going a little bit more towards the south. So that's how in-depth these teams will kind of play their decisions, and will they rotate based off of the information that they do have available. But information is one thing, having a scrap is another, Dan, and Full English will be eliminated. And again, I think it's just a case of their fighting not being up to scratch today.
Yeah, it's another game that's ended pretty poorly for Full English, but it is going to be about getting reps under your belt. not the North American reps. You don't want to try and put him under a belt. Instead, I just mean getting the games done and dusted. The chemistry has to start to arrive with some of these teams, and it might take a few match weeks, but you need to find it soon, because otherwise you are going to be at the bottom of that leaderboard looking up and then having to play somewhat aggressively in these final weeks. But certainly in the final games, we might see more teams trying to push fights, trying to get that KP if the rotations and the zone play hasn't really worked out for them.
Yeah, Exoclan are going to try and hold down this building, which is kind of in the valley between the tunnel and Siphon itself, and they're also going to be playing a little bit of crypto to just not only grief some of the people who are surrounding and cause some problems, but also just to get the information of where everybody else is trying to rotate. And you would imagine if it stays quiet for the next minute or so, it might think about repositioning, because everyone else will be thinking, hey, the zone isn't going to him, and the teams who do have that survey beacon will have obviously located towards zone. And Alliance now, it was a little bit surprising to see them leave, I would say, thermal station with the white armor. Not sure if that was the case in the last game, but we certainly saw the effect with just the white armor. Maybe he had to swap to it because he took some damage, but it didn't look like the normal loophole that they would have left with.
No, they are a team who like to be well looted and booted. I mean, they still are going to be comfortable in fights, even with pretty poor tier loot, but they just want to make sure they are a lot more equipped when they do get into those engagements, because people are going to have those purples ready, especially if they've already been in a fight, been able to level up those Evo shields effectively, as X are able to force away a team and take control of this building, and now they can hold this for quite some time, I'd imagine.
I want to say, by the way, that is a beautiful construction of what's... he ruined it. I was going to say, it was a beautiful construction of concentric... Look at that.
Wow.
Oh, it's a bow tie.
That could be an esports logo.
It's 2005 Dan Gaskin.
Wow, that's a time to be alive. Watson, though, has been very prevalent in these lobbies. We were kind of wondering, would we see much Watson today? I think yesterday in APAC gave me an indication that, yes, she is going to crop up a little bit. The fact that you can just zone out some teams and really frustrate them and hunker down is going to be so important, especially here on World's Edge, where those rotations are going to be a little bit more comfortable than Storm Point. But we're seeing such a different pace on set, such a different pace of lobbies than what we saw in scrims, and I think that every year we get used to scrims being so fast, and then tournament play comes around and we're like, yeah, okay, this is how the game is played. Everyone is playing a little bit more zone or playing more slow edge, because we have seen teams finding success playing edge here.
Yeah, I think teams realize as well that, if you die, it really matters in ALGS.
You can't just go and get your dinner like you can in
Post Malone's been playing.
He's a hot dropper for sure. Speaking of hot drops, people dropping out of the sky. It's 2R1C, just trying to stay away from, I think it's Infinite, who were doing some damage, but now they're down to a 2, so they're going to have to retreat. And this is happening a lot, right? We're seeing so many fights happen and an engagement start to unfold, and then people retreating when they are down and out of the fight because of maybe Conduit and the fact that those fights are extended, and the fact that there are so many teams still left in this lobby that you're vulnerable to a third party, and your best chance of picking up points is actually to retreat, try and stay alive, and either raz a 2 or potentially get that banner depending on your comp. Now, here for Infinite, it's not going to be a situation where they can get that banner. They don't have a support. They would have to get the banner the good old-fashioned way of getting it from the box. So there is still a chance, but maybe for them it's just going to be about survival.
Yeah, I think one thing to just highlight as well is if you escape as a 2 and you decide to rat as well, let's just think about things a little bit here. Ratting has become more viable of a tactic. We don't have Seer, we don't have many Bloodhounds, so people aren't going to be scanning buildings and getting that free information, so you can get that first pick, and a 2v3 it just turns into a 2v2, which becomes winnable, right? So you have to be very aware if you're making a rotation through any buildings at the moment of teams who might be just hiding in some corners, hiding in some pretty unorthodox positions to catch you off guard and get that first pick. And I'm sure there would have been some occasions of that, teams holding chokes, playing up in that high ground and not showing until rotation comes in.
Yeah, make yourself big sometimes as a 2 as well. You can make yourself look like a 3 if you have good enough damage output. But Aftermath trying to make their rotation from Geyser through that choke, but it looks like they're going to have to retreat because 2R1C are there. 07 are in the area as well. Infinite, there are 4 teams here. And 07, they're kind of licking their lips a little bit, having a look at this one saying, could we? Should we? Maybe? But no, they're thinking better of it, and they're going to make their own rotation elsewhere.
Yeah, I think that's the smart decision, right? They not only do they realize that this is a third party where no one has really gone down, but also they realize the zone is moving. So they can turn around from inside of the zone and look at this if the teams try to mirror them on the way in. But Infinite, we mentioned how they're trying to show themselves as a 2 at the moment and make themselves look big. Well, they have to go somewhere. And the problem for them is they've got a team below them and they've got a team who they're going to have to try and take down before they rotate. So this is just slowing everyone down at the moment. You don't really understand who benefits from this fight as Zone 2 starts to close.
You can't go under it and you can't go over it. You've got to go through it if you're Aftermath here. You've got to try and take the fight. Otherwise, the zone is just going to chunk you down. And this looks like it could be a dismal end for Aftermath, as they may just end up falling to the zone here if they're not careful.
Yeah, I mean, just decides to pop the shield battery instead of maybe a med kit. Not sure if he has that, of course. It's going to make things a little bit more awkward for them. And now we mentioned how it was a 3v2 and now it can become a 2v2. Well, it's continuing to be a problem. And now Infinite are going to send it. They see the res coming in. They get good damage in and around that knockdown shield. But can they finish it? No, they cannot. And AM will survive. But they will be spotted out, but they can get back up to 3. Can they get the meds popped in time? Syringe will be dropped. Flash might go down here, and I think the Flash will go down here and have to be picked up once more. This is the problem, right? That fight took so long. The zone is now just closing behind them, and nobody really benefited from that, Dan.
Yeah, and I guess that's sometimes the downside of facing up against a 2, because a 2 always feels like they've already got nothing to lose anyway, so they're probably going to be more than happy to take that fight. Elsewhere, 07 trying to make their way in. They're being greeted by E6, also on this tip, who would be able to watch that fight if it had gone down previously, but 07 are taking the high ground. Horizon proving to be very valuable here on World's Edge, not just Stormpoint.
Yeah, and this is first place versus third place in the overall standings at the moment. And Amphi is going to go down, and Nags has to move in. Gets a shield break, but the shield swap, you would imagine, comes in. But there's one for him with the Mastiff. The purple boy allowing him to just make sure he's got a decent rate of fire on that. Destroys the black hole almost immediately. And E6 have been eliminated. So the congestion and the traffic surrounding means there must be a third party on the way. And that's exactly what the case is.
Yeah, Outplayed are going to now be here to try and finish off the fight that had already happened here. They can just lock this player down in the building and make it more than difficult to escape, because 15 seconds until teams start to be moving. They know that player is going to have to come out eventually, and Outplayed are going to be able to pick up an extra KP. Elsewhere, I think maybe they're still alive. Aftermath. Yeah, Aftermath have been able to escape the red eventually, and they will still be able to play the game of Apex Legends. So even though they looked like they were in a dismal position, it looks like they were at least able to get something on the way for themselves. As now with round 3 closing, we're heading even further down just on the east side of launch site, closer towards Dome. And there are a few teams who are already taking the kind of rock areas around the lava that just need to be careful about teams arriving.
Yeah, one team is in a great position is Cold. They have held down that position just outside of the Dome on the rocky formations for pretty much the entire game, and they are still there at the moment, and they're trying to hold out teams moving through this vault tunnel. And one of those is going to be 2R1C that we see on our screen right now. The Conduit always going to slow things down. The barricade is a problem, as are caustic barrels. So if you wanted to find out how difficult a push this is and what Conduit can do in slowing things down, here is the opportunity to do so. However, the Horizon Q just takes them up and above and away from all of it.
Yeah, the energy barricade is so good, not only at slowing teams down, but it also works out, as it says, as a barricade. You can even hide behind it, and it takes damage for you at times if you're in the right position. But 2R1C, try as they might to do some damage through these thermites. They're just a 2 right now, but they have a chance to reset in the pills here.
Yeah, this is a 2v2. You can see the thermite going down as well, and Cold are still looking at this. So anyone who tries to cross their line of sight, they can get some shots on. Oh, the thermite is burning, is searing you to a medium well. And that is going to be the end of this fight, you would imagine. Shaco, please. Thank you. Manages to finish this one off, and 2 Rats 1 Controller will survive for now.
That thermite was perfectly placed. It looked like it wasn't hitting whilst they were doing the res, but as soon as they got back up, the animation sent both of them into the thermite. Excellent placement in the end, which won the fight. Now, ExoClan, there are 3 right now, but look at the health on these players. Shex has fallen, so they do have an advantage. It is a 3 versus 2, and they've managed to get the wipe. Shield swaps available to them. This is looking good for Exo.
Shield swaps available, but the only problem is they're already chipped away, and look at the health on everybody. But there's the Watson gen. 07 eliminated in the meantime. The last remaining player, Naski, has been taken down. Excuse me, it was Nags who was that final remaining player. ExoClan trying to stabilize here, trying to survive, and they should be, you would imagine, able to get those health meds popped. They do have the man advantage as well, so they should be safe to move.
Yeah, Outplayed now taking their building off of them, but I think Exo are okay with that because they've been able to reset, and they know they now have the player advantage as well. So it's about just sieging the castle now. How do you get in, or do you just block them in? That's another way to approach things. You have to leave, we have to rotate, so we're just going to wait for you here.
Problem is, they've got to smoke their backs off, and I was going to say, it's important that they do that, and Babies recognize that situation, because otherwise they're just going to get shot in the back, and that makes an opportunity to present itself. But the Prowler, we all know about the Prowler. It's got the Digi threat on it as well. ANC Outplayed will be eliminated as we're now down to 11 squads, and I tell you what, this is going to be a bit of a scrap for this Vault Tunnel, but if they can get in and they can escape, there's an opportunity for them.
And the fuse in the lobby, by the way, just making things even more difficult for teams trying to rotate. The fact you can fire that knuckle cluster so many times, it's just horrible to play against because it just constantly ticks away at you. A constant reminder that that fuse is going to be there and a pain in the backside. Now Exo having to turn back on themselves, go through the fuse ult as well, and they're going to be so weak heading into this fight.
They're going to be weak, but not down. However, that's going to change in about 2 seconds time. 2R1C come in, finish off that damage, and they will win that fight. Should be able to get a pretty comfortable res as well. Alliance having a little sneaky look at this, but there's too many teams for them to overextend. And look at the north side. Is 40% worse? Can they improve their points total by 40% with a good game here?
Yeah, they're in 16th at the moment with 13 points, as you can see on the right-hand side with teams remaining, and a chance for Cold, who have not been able to get going here to try and do something, as now Effect flies in with the rest of Alliance, but Passion are going to be there to clean up that as well. Effect, as the Rat, thought maybe he'd be able to get some KP, and unfortunately for him, was greeted by another team. So Passion will eventually win this battle on the northern side. Mine still have a Rat on the north as well, and then 40% worse are on the west. The teams in the zone are Cold and one member of Cybercat. So Cold, arguably, in the best position of the game right now.
We'll say the one member of Cybercats, by the way, has been alive for quite some time underneath the position they find themselves in, Cold. 40% worse. One opportunity this is for them, Dan. We mentioned how E6 have kind of extended their lead at the top, and they are the clear leaders when it comes to points. But the rest of the lobby is pretty close, and a win could completely catapult you up those standings. We heard from Shiv saying he wants to dominate, he wants to win absolutely everything. Well, we're going to have to see if that is going to be the case. With the team in the priority position, the God spot is going to be Cold. It's time for us to jump into our listening and see how they see out this endgame.
Dead. Look right.
48, cracked him. Behind this rock over there.
Focus it full team, maybe. There's 2 full teams.
Shit, I only have 24 heavy.
Yeah, I have 30 now.
You going
on the right?
Yeah, they're in front of me.
They killed the Rat. It's 2 teams. It's 2 teams. 2 full teams, guys.
Yeah,
they smoked me
off. Watch your left. Yeah, watch it.
They're fighting? Maybe? I don't see them. I'm scanning.
They're behind the right rock.
No, you see them. They're all 3 here.
So it's just... Wait, no, that's a duo, right?
Yeah, it's a duo on the right, maybe, and then a trio here.
They're barely in.
Guys, we win. Look at this zone. They're still smoking me. It ends on me. It ends fucking on me.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, they're taking space on the left in the bins.
Yeah, don't let them fucking come here.
We should be able to get... Wait. 100
3 seconds for scan. 3 seconds for scan. They're just smoking me on repeat.
They're getting shot now. Maybe...
Yes. Kill this team if we can. Kill this team. Help. That's a full team here. Wait, I'm scanning again.
What team are we trying to help?
We want to kill the trio.
Okay.
Open a bar.
There's one guy solo here. These guys, we just win this game.
He's running now. He's running now.
Yeah, focus that more. I'm watching the right team.
They smoked me off.
They're dropping bats for each other. They don't have bats.
Yeah, I'm just chilling with my shots, bro.
He's behind the ping here.
Enemies here.
Cat skipped across.
Yeah, I'm 91 on my ult. I'm about to get my ult as well. 40 on 1.
You should get these kills on the right.
Yes, we will. They're running up. No, we should have. Okay, we need to treat me. Kill this.
I'm bang on left.
Bang on left. Then join left.
Cut the guy behind the bin.
Kill one.
I'm nading it.
I'm waiting for this bang ult. I'm going on bang ult.
Last team.
Did you hit that one?
Yeah, I'm walking up. I stun one, Horizon 1.
Yeah, I'm watching over you.
Bang one.
I'm coming.
Last one.
Jake, he's almost cracked.
Yeah, just wait for me. I'm coming.
I'm waiting for you.
He's trying to
Yeah, I'm coming. I'm gonna
I
swing.
did.
Oh.
Good job. We got all.
Well, it's Cold in the end game as Cold will win that game convincingly. You heard the listening there. I mean, Graceful, he was full of confidence on where that game was going to be ended and how it was going to be going down, and they showed that they can convert.
He's also in a perpetual state of yelling, is Graceful. And as a man who I've met is so softly spoken in real life, just didn't stop yelling because he knew that game was theirs and they just had to kind of wait and play correctly.
I will say I 1v1'd him and he obviously beat me. He was yelling at me. So, and I cannot repeat what he was yelling at me during it, but I'm just saying. However, I did say next one wins, and I did win that round. So, who actually won? Anyway, let's talk about the game a little bit, Dan, because I mean, it was their game from the start.
It was. I think the fact that they were able to kind of suss out that circle nice and early, but also get to that position, and they realized it was just playing the waiting game, also scaring teams away as they arrived. They were putting down a lot of damage from anyone who would kind of evac tower close to them or even walk near them, and it was just a matter of time until they got closer to that end game where they could kind of manipulate the way that final circle went by putting damage, whether it was with grenades or just with their guns. They pick up 7 kills along the way, a 19-point game, massive for Cold as they were struggling on Storm Point, but they've been able to find a victory here on World's Edge.
40% worse in second place as well. We saw them take down that duo in the in-game just to secure a few more KP. Weren't able to steal the win away, but 12 points overall for them. Very, very strong. And we saw Passion winning a lot of fights in that game, and that means that they total up as well with 7 kills alongside their 7 placement points to end up with 14. But there's one team who kind of jump off that page to me, and it's down in 7th. 10 kills for 2 Rats, 1 Controller.
Yeah, 2R1C are just one of these squads that we know can be a real threat in the lobby when it comes to their fighting skills. They're not scared to be aggressive, and they can certainly ruin teams' rotations when they do find that certain aggression next to other squads. On the flip side, 07 still picking up 6 kills despite just a 1 placement point, but they probably would have liked to get a little bit further. But unfortunately, when they did make their rotation, they were greeted by several other teams doing exactly the same thing. We're seeing that a lot today, as we would expect in the ALGS. Teams making similar rotations, trying to make the best rotation possible, trying to not restrict yourself by going through certain chokes, but by doing so, you play into more popular areas, which can result in more teams.
Also means that, you know, they've contested LVH, and even though they're winning it, that 30 seconds the contest takes, that 2 minutes the contest takes, it slows down what might be your pre-planned rotation, or what you would say is your ideal one. So they have to deal with that as well as everybody who is being contested at the moment does as well. Here's your match 5 results then. You can see who did the damage, who picked up the kills. And at the top of the leaderboards there, you can see it's Tyler, the man I mentioned, who was fragging out last year alongside his Vex teammates. Well, he's found a new place to play, and he's got 4 kills to go alongside it.
Yeah, top 3 teams. I'm looking across compositions, and there is slight difference. It's not like we saw earlier on Storm Point, where all 3 were fairly similar. We're seeing a lot of people experiment now with how they want to run their compositions across from Storm Point and World's Edge. We've always known that we see teams swip and swap when it comes to changing between maps, but certainly Horizon's still very prevalent, but also the amount of Watson we're seeing today really shows how important she's been at just locking down some of these locations, and that gen that she puts down for her ultimate is going to be crazy in some of these late game fights as well.
Yeah, it certainly is showing its value, as a lot of different legends do. Now that we have a healthy legend pool, you're seeing how certain teams are being able to counterplay other legends and compositions. And it's just this consistent game of chess that we love to see in Apex Legends when it comes to compositions. But I mean, a very important moment for Cold. They take home the winning game number 5, and we're going to go for a quick break before we get back, Dan, for some more Apex. Welcome back, you beautiful people. Dan Gaskin's haircut is still looking magnificent, and mine hasn't changed since last season. One more game to go here on World's Edge. Dan, I'm keeping it, keeping it classic. You're moving on with the times. I love it. We'll have to see if teams can do the same here in our final game.
Yeah, and first place is up for grabs with E6 going out relatively early. It means that people are playing catch up, people are closing that gap. Don't think we'll see any bonus points today. Actually, I am 100% sure we won't see any bonus points today, but that means it just leaves it up for other teams to be that first squad to get a bonus point. Don't worry, I will stop talking about bonus points. They're just new. I like talking about new and exciting things, all right?
This is a number. You love numbers. This is like Christmas for you. This is like everything.
Love numbers, love maths. Well, match 6 is going to be World's Edge again, but we've had a different winner in every single match so far. Are we going to get our first repeat winner, or will we manage to see all 6 matches being different squads?
Well, that's looking like it might be the case, as we've seen consistently different teams in those end zones. And one thing I'm wondering about is if we're actually going to go to the north of World's Edge here, because we've had 2 zones which have pulled down towards the south. We had the tree zone, and then we had the one outside of launch site. So we're going to have to see if some of the teams on the north side get a little bit of luck going their way with where that zone starts to go. We can see the legends starting to populate as well. We got a little bit of Bloodhound. We've seen Watson, which I think is the correct call from you to see that it's been utilized pretty heavily, but not a huge amount of conduit here on World's Edge in comparison to what we saw on Storm Point.
Yeah, teams that are looking to have the early fights are still picking Conduit by the looks of it. We've got like, what, 5, 6 teams with Conduit. We also have a Crypto coming in for Alliance as well. The only Crypto in the lobby, I believe. Still nothing to be seen of any like Revenant or anything crazy for teams looking to be aggressive. And that's probably down to the lobby still being relatively close, Mark. There is still points to be picked up here. No one feels like they desperately need to be searching for points, especially in match 1, or week 1, should I say, in your matches, because you still could get decent points with your composition that you played. You don't have to play catch-up just yet.
Well, let's see how game number 6 goes here in EMEA. The games pace-wise have been pretty consistent. Everybody's been trying to play for that end game and trying to maximize those opportunities to get points on the board. It's been a pretty good day of Apex so far. I would say the last game, a little bit surprised to see some of the zone reads coming in, especially from the teams who might have got the survey beacon. It didn't feel like many teams really got that one right, Dan, and that really did cost them as we got towards that end game with Cole just sitting there pretty much on their own uncontested. But speaking of contests and being uncontested, that's not the case here over at Tree.
Yet Mind and No Days Off are having their fight yet again. I will note Alliance are dropping very aggressively close by here, just to have a little peek if they would like to. But Mind ran away last time. They weren't able to get the better of No Days Off, but it looks like maybe, I was going to say Mind have got the better of them, but things slightly even out here as it's going to be the Nemesis shredding through, and No Days Off are eliminated. Now, do Alliance or Cybercats try and jump on it? Yes, Cybercats say, okay, well, you've done the damage initially. Maybe we can pick up the pieces here.
Do they have the time to do so, though? Are they going to be able to reset? You can see Ranches is already up high. They haven't managed to pop those cells yet, and to be fair, they wouldn't have been in a position to pick up batteries just because this was an immediate contest, so they wouldn't have been able to loot up. It will only be shield cells to play with, but Ranches has taken a little bit of damage, and now there's an opportunity and a window for them to reset and make Cybercats think about this.
Cybercats on the core stick as well, running as a 2, and they will just retreat out of that one. Mind did very well to reset quickly, get back on their feet, and then retreat so that they didn't take too much damage. Alliance also went more than happily back to Thermal Station to carry on their looting path, but I did like how aggressively they dropped just so they could keep an eye or their ears down and check on that fight as well. Now, circle-wise, we're going to be moving up between Monument and Landslide for this circle, so this is going to be very difficult to play on that western side with very little coverage, but you can survive in Monument for quite some time here, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see teams moving quite quickly towards the center of the map.
Yeah, I think that choke on the northern side of it is going to be the most important to hold, right? Because you have that high ground opportunity to look over both teams coming in from the east side and the west side, and I double checked that before I said it. It's a place where Vamos Carrera have already moved to, and they drop over at Monument, so they value that position. Kashera is always very good at putting his teams in what he believes is going to be the best position for the long game, and that's where they've chosen, so you would get a pretty good indication of where is going to be the best spot to play.
Distant.
So many pings going around. There's another core stick on our screens.
I love that ping, by the way, when it's like wingman is 4 miles away. It's like, cool.
Yeah. It's like, great, well done. You have an ability that can see inside them. Good for you. It just makes me jealous because then I want to go for that wingman as we
also
get a little
look. That the team rotating for the other side is going to have a wingman. So yeah,
yes, there is. I mean, maybe that's why there's the ping. Be dangerous. A wingman is going to be on the map. There's the circle for you guys watching at home that I was talking about earlier as well. Kind of between Monument and Landslide is where teams are heading at the moment. These rocks are going to be a fantastic place to hold if you can hold them, and this is where Watson can really come into your advantage, as we see Kashira also just holding himself down with a crypto.
It was fascinating to see how, when we talk about legend composition and meta, it always seems like eventually things start to come around full circle, right? And Watson becomes that opportunistic kind of zone holding area, legend, I should say, for holding down areas. As Valkyria, they got some pretty good armors, to be fair, as well, off the start. From Monument, they got purple and 2 blues, and they've also got 30-30s with decent sights to chip away and get those leveled up. So they're in a really good spot, actually. It's just, the question is always, can you hold it down? Can you hold the teams off who are going to be continually challenging you and trying to get that god spot away from you? Because if you can output damage as well as you can get that position, then you should be in for a pretty good long game.
And this reminds me of Kashira and the Ascend squad that we used to see, and how they would love to kind of rotate and just post up really early, and how much success they would find playing that way as well. Even though they weren't known for, you know, their 3v3 engagements, it was more about the brain of Kashira and their positioning and their rotations, and this is the perfect chance for them to shine here as well. So we'll have to see how that plays for them as the game goes on. But of course, being in a prime position, you are going to be vulnerable to other teams trying to take it off you. So the Watson going to be massive for them for sure.
Well, Mind have survived. Not sure what their loot's going to look like, though, to be fair, considering that they did have that contest and that they had to kind of retreat and reset and kind of formulate plan B, I would say, as to how they want to move in on this zone. There's a few moves coming in, by the way, from Conduits. One thing we haven't talked about, by the way, the emotes. Very important part of competitive Apex.
Either changing the spirits of your own team or demoralizing other teams. There is always going to be a room and a reason for an emote.
I mean, we talked about how there's no Seer. We talked about how Bloodhound isn't a huge pick.
I think we should go there.
August and Hungry know this better than anyone. This is 3 rats in a train. Like being on the underground.
Yeah, they're waiting to move on into King's Cross Station and then jump out on whoever is going to be waiting on that platform, but
waiting to ruin someone's day. I'd be so angry if I walk through here. Especially with Unlucky and Kinda. You know what I mean? You're just going to get destroyed.
I understand the game plan, and it will probably work. You're probably going to catch one team, but then where do you go afterwards? Are you then going to be, you know, vulnerable to another team third-partying you? Because it is going to be quite a hotspot for rotations through the train zone. So I'm excited to see what goes down, but maybe teams will have a bad feeling.
Bait the death boxes. Giga brain plays. Bait the death boxes. Someone else comes in. Do it again. Keep doing it till you win.
I mean, if anyone's going to do it, it would be them, right? Like, they're that kind of squad that are very good at fighting and also want to be in 3v3 engagements. They love playing edge. They love being aggressive where they can.
Well, Exo Clan at the moment, they're set up inside a monument on the western side of things, and this is an area that you were talking about can be played for the long game, and Monument still gives, even though, you know, we've seen a little bit of a change over the center of World's Edge over the years, still a fair amount of playable situations with some multi-level buildings for teams to occupy. Infinite, though, they're nowhere near it at the moment. They are rotating all the way around Epicenter, and there's a couple of different teams near them. Cybercats is one of them. LVH are up on the high ground, so maybe they saw them. Maybe they decided, hey, if we want to get up here, we're going to have to take a longer route.
We get it. You know how to crouch whilst you run. There we go.
Sounds like horses, doesn't it? Like
really just galloping over World's Edge toward any enemy they may find. Really checking every corner at the moment is aimbot, and again leads back to your point where without a Bloodhound, without a Seer, you do have to be checking for where rats could reside, because they can ruin your game, they can ruin your day. Circle information, we are going to be moving even further west, closer to the area we were talking about. So all those teams who were banking on Monument that were going to be safe for the time being are going to have to move. So the likes of Ammo Korea are going to be in prime position. Full English have found themselves in a pretty good spot. And you could also say 07 and Passion have got something to work with here as well.
Look at E6, very top of your screen. 07 are watching their backs. But the zone wrap coming in from E6 could ruin their day. If they are not watching their backs, 07 are going to have a nasty surprise.
At the same time, if they are watching their backs, E6 are going to have a nasty surprise, and they're going to be slightly weak. We'll have to see what happens, as elsewhere, Alliance just holding down the fort at the moment.
love to see what happens between E6, by the way. Alliance, though, they're trying to hold things down at the moment. They're working their way around Harvester. Good shots coming in from Hackis as well with that Havoc. The turbocharged Havoc, by the way, is a menace in this current state of Apex. Really can do some great damage. They're not going to be able to find these kills, though, and now they're going to have to retreat a little bit. Don't want to overextend for this. Need to think about that rotate. Round 2 is going to be closing. By the way, E6 and 07 seem to have just decided they can share a little bit of ground for now. But E6 having to retreat, and it looks like they're going to decide to zone wrap once again. And a bit like a, what's it, Goldilocks and the Three Bears? No, that's not the one. What's the Hansel and Gretel? That's it. You know, what do they drop? The sweets? The stones? I don't know.
Yeah.
I can modernize it.
Goldilocks and the Three Bears would be a very different story. This spot wasn't quite right. This spot was too good. We need one that was just, I don't know where I'm going with that one, but either way, they are going to have to back off.
Both of us have really gone off the rails.
I made it even worse.
I'm sorry. That's on me.
Element 6 are going to have to wrap through the vault area now, which, you know, it isn't bad. It probably feels bad for them because they are expecting someone to be holding down vault, but the fact that no one's there, they can actually hold this for quite some time. Yes, it doesn't work with maybe their aggressive edge play, but they want to be getting as many points as possible to stay on top right now, and they also get some free goodies from the vault that was left behind.
Well, no, Cybercats were eliminated. I think they were just down to a solo. Alliance also eliminated as well, and one of our running themes coming into this season of the ALGS was, who are the teams who are going to step up to Alliance in EMEA? Well, Alliance have struggled to find any kind of consistency in this lobby so far, Dan, and maybe that's a little bit of a concern for them.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of teams that will look at this first match week and be a little bit concerned of how they played, but I think it's to be expected, and you can't expect there to be brilliance opening right at the start of ALGS if you had made changes, etc. So people shouldn't be too disheartened in their first match week, and as long as you are roughly close to the pace, then it is not going to be too detrimental for you.
Well, August and Hungary have finally left the tunnel. They've decided that, as lovely as it was to spend a little bit of time there, the lights were starting to turn off on the ideas, and they needed to rethink about their rotation. And speaking of zone pulls, well, it has pulled back to where we thought it was going to be. It is going to be on the east side, of that mountainous range, just outside of Monument. And teams who kind of backed on Monument, well, they're going to have to move from there. And it's going to be Vamo Carrere, Full English, who are in great positions, and also August and Hungary will have a walk up here from the southern side if they can clear their backs on that tunnel.
And the circle is pulling back towards where Vamo Carrere and Full English are residing as well. So they've really nailed down where this final circle is going to be. However, everyone else who is kind of just above landslide, and the E6 as well might be in trouble, but 2 rats, 1 controller. They make sure they get that job done quickly, mind eliminated, and it looks like they're able to do so and get back up to a 4-3 without being punished.
2 rats by name, 1 controller by name also, and also that play was just 4 rats. That was 3 rats. 3 rats, 1 of them plays controller. Maybe that's the way to think about things from now on. But it's, again, successful, right? They heard the zone wrap. They knew there was a couple of teams in zone, and they're going to be taking damage. It's such an easy fight to take. And it's, I think you've got to be very wary on zone wrapping these days, just because of the fact you don't have that scan of information on teams who are going to be playing those corners. So that is going to be an easy KP for them. Infinite, they're going to be up on the high ground now. And we mentioned how them and LVH were having a little poke at each other. Well, that is still the case now as they try and take each other on.
Dark Veil goes down. Infinite respond with one of their own. 2 Dark Veils to really just cut off all vision. And a lot is going to be down to the Catalyst players here to be able to poke between, but they may just do a little bit of ring around the rosies.
Hey, beautiful. Very on brand. Decide to both disengage, though, as Infinite will slide back in towards Monument, but try and cut down the team on the pass, which is going to be LVH. They've got the zone closing behind them, Dan. They've got to be so careful in this fight. The longer it takes, the more of a problem it is for both teams.
16 squads remain, but that 16 is probably about to become about 10 as this circle closes, because all of these teams on the eastern side are moving together. Exoclan, Infinite, Aftermath, Stay Healthy are all going to struggle to get in at the same time here. So this is where you really need to rely on your damage dealers to be outputting as much as possible. Keep your team healthy, keep teams at bay. As now you can see LVH are going to push in onto AM, but are they going to be able to get any knocks here?
This fight just keeps going on. The zone is going to be influenced in it. Exoclan eliminated in the meantime from 18 to 15, and you would imagine that's going to go down even more. But LVH should be able to reset here. They do have a little place to play, but they've got no one looking at them. But there's that wrap coming in as we see one player just trying to overextend to influence the fight, and that is exactly what it is going to do. Vibes will finish off the last one, but here come Full English, serving up the beans and giving them the beans as well.
You've been waiting for that one all day, haven't you? As Full English will finally do something in the game, as they now find themselves in the top 11, close to more placement points, but more importantly, in a good spot for this circle as well. They have the Watson fences to work with just to hold teams out, as E6 are now getting aggressive onto 07. Nargs is struggling to stay alive, but it looks like E6 will be able to close that one out, close the fight out. 07 eliminated. E6 again continue to be at the top of this lobby.
2 Raskin, 1 controller gone as well, and that was the fight that's been going down for some time. This was the battle for this rotate in, and it is going to be won by E6. Now, Passion are in front of them, but I'm pretty sure that Passion are going to be a duo, as you see a little bit of damage coming in and a finish coming in as well. However, look who's coming in from Landslide. It's going to be 40% worse, or if they're not quick here, E6 on this rotate might have to fight them as well.
Vamokuda, who are holding center zone, also just peeling off the wigs of anyone who is going to be joining them in the center of this circle, and they now go back to their little hidey hole. Another gen goes down, and they're staying healthy, they're staying well. They've taken so much space right from the start of this game onset, and they're being able to reap the rewards right now. 8 squads left, and everyone's going to be coming towards Vamokuda. But look at those fences, look how much area they have to play.
Yeah, really commanding the space by doing so. The team who we mentioned a little bit earlier on, who's going to have a walk in from the north, if they can win their fight, is going to be ALGS and Hungary, excuse me, from the south. I did it again. My screen was the wrong way. It's a whole mess. Anyway, they've got to walk in, is what I'm trying to say, and they will be safe. Cold are down to just 1, and they're surviving on the north side. The Full English, though, they're on the low ground of this zone, and where it's going to be pulling, they will have to fight uphill. But E6 inside the top 8, KB again, and now with this height advantage over 40% worse, you get the feeling, Dan, they should have a little bit more KP to add. Let's jump into a listen now with E6.
Solo's gonna grief us. He's cracked.
I'm dead. I got stunned by bangles. Nice mini. Right here, Spin. It's the day.
What's up, bang? Killed me. This Solo fucking griefed me. Yeah, I know. This Solo griefed me. Well, I dropped off the thing.
Well, the classic reaction of a team who's just died. It was someone else's fault. Someone did something wrong. But in the grander scheme of it, Dan, good performance from E6. They will get more points on the board, and they might be in a position to take home first place after this.
Yeah, maybe they'll still hold on to first, but it is going to be tight depending on what happens elsewhere. But it was that Solo from Passion who really ruined their day, and now 40% worse are going to try and pick up that Solo who had done so. Mandy will go down, but they should be able to get him back up because it is just a Solo that was looking at them. But now, Outplayed are wrapping from the north. Outplayed are going to find that Solo, and they might be able to challenge 40% worse. How important could that gold knockdown be?
Yeah, sometimes you just don't think about that, right? You know, the quick reset comes in, you fight a guy who you think is just going to be, you know, 10, 15 HP, and then all of a sudden it turns around. However, the spray from Shex is very nice. Now they're looking to move in and clean things up. That's exactly what they are going to be able to do. ANC Outplayed down to 2. There is still 1 alive, but where has he gone? They don't quite know where he's going to be, and now it's a 1v1. Surprise, it's completely turned on its head. Jax has got to be careful here. Cannot let this 1v2 happen. Doesn't let the 1v2 happen, and will take down Shiv. They will control this side of zone.
All the meanwhile, Full English just took down Vamokuda in one of the prime positions of the circle, and VQ, who were there for the entire game, were shut down by a push from the Full English. So now we have ALGS and Hungary, Outplayed, Full English, and a Rat from Cold as our last 4 teams here in this final circle.
I do like the fact that if you're a solo player now, you haven't got to worry about being scanned. You can make a play and influence these end game lobbies, and that's what Cold are probably thinking, right? Cold are probably thinking, we won the last game. If we could get some more points here, then maybe we can push ourselves right up into contention when we come to those final standings. But Full English, it's time for the boys to arrive, and they're looking pretty good.
Yeah, they've taken one of the better spots. And this is a huge game and a huge chance for them to jump up the leaderboards in what was very much needed after a day of struggles and difficult rotations. I mean, Storm Point, it was a bad rotation for them every single time, but they finally got something to work with. Now, ANC Outplayed, who are gunning for first place in today's lobby, still have the chance to do so with a victory here. They could catch up E6, who currently are in #1, but most importantly, if you're putting down 50+ points in a match week, you're already in a good spot.
I will say, you're looking at ALGS and Hungary, and you're looking at their position. They don't have to show first. The two teams who will have to engage first are going to be ANC Outplayed and Full English, just because of how the line of sights are working, as ANC will have to move through that choke. Also, you add on the fact that you can see ALGS and Hungary, they had about 3 armor swaps out, Dan, so they will be able to output damage and shield swap to stay alive a little bit longer, unless Full English can do damage and force them off that high ground. That's exactly what they've done.
Or is it going to be who blinks first? This is something that happens in 3v3v3, as a team will try and make a play to either win the game or at least secure second place. And now engaging in this fight gives Outplayed the option to push when they want, and maybe could give them the victory depending on what happens here.
It's such a good ult, and now they're going to be forced to back up. Unlucky will go down. ALGS and Hungary find themselves with 2 on their back. It's Matafe who has to stay alive now and try and influence this fight to force them into a second place, but they tried to take space, Dan. I'm not sure if that was the right play for them to do.
Well, Full English, they were able to come out on top, but can they stay healthy? Because now Outplayed have taken the high ground, they've taken center zone, and they have abilities to work with as well, as now Shex and the rest of the squad just dealing damage out to what they can see through the smoke.
Have to move through this open ground, though, to try and finish off the fight. ANC Outplayed will take down ALGS and Hungary. Matafe will fall, and now it's a straight... I think it's only 1 player alive here to deal with. ANC Outplayed will move through that choke and will win our final game, and you get the feeling, Dan, that maybe with that win, it might be an influence on the overall leaderboards to put them up there as well.
I think it pushes them to second place, maybe not quite catching up first of E6, but either way, getting them extra points as they move forward in this match week. And it was kind of giving them to them a little bit. We saw what happened. The 2 squads taking the 3v3. Full English maybe would be a little bit frustrated about what happened there, but they did pretty well to set that team back. But unfortunately, it ruined their chances of winning the game. And Outplayed just kind of strolled up to the choke saying, okay, well, we've got 3 shots here. But they did very well. They didn't blink first, as I said. They were the team that was most patient. You were concerned maybe they would have to be pushed through and seen by the other 2 squads. But as soon as that Dark Veil came down, it allowed Outplayed to walk up for free.
Yeah, very, very well played and very well managed with the utility and the ultimate abilities in that final moment. And again, I always say it, some great shots coming in as well, just to make sure that damage was output. And this is how things look after that game is done. ANC Outplayed, like we saw on the top of the leaderboards, 19 points for them, 7 kills in that game, down. And Full English finally starting to fry. Been waiting on that one as well. 4 kills for them, 13 points overall.
God, I miss a fry up so bad. 13 points for ALGS and Hungary, 40% worse, getting 10 points on the board with 6 kills, but they were, of course, struggled with their rotation when they were greeted by Element 6, but even Element 6 couldn't get in from that zone. I said right from the get-go when we saw that circle pool, anyone arriving from that western side trying to come through from Landslide was not going to have a fun time. But in the end, it was the last team to arrive that were able to make something worth of it from the north to the west. Now, 07 were the 10th place, and down at the bottom, again, a difficult time for No Days Off. They had such a good start to today, but they weren't able to stay consistent, sadly. Cybercats to 2, 0 points. Alliance weren't able to get going in that one. Interestingly, the 3 teams there dropping down in the southwest side of the map, all picking up 0 points.
Yeah, very tough rotate for them, but also a little bit surprising to see Alliance right down there. Usually they have some KP to go alongside it, but maybe a little bit of nerf to the POI with a few armors not going their way. Maybe they didn't get a little bit of crafting to it. Make sure they were in a position to really be strong in those fights. We'll have to look back on that game and find out. But I mean, the fact that we have multiple winners today kind of doesn't help with our question we had at the start of the day, Rain Day, which is who's going to be the team to step up and challenge.
That's right. And a lot of the people who we had winning maybe today didn't perform at the highest of levels in terms of getting into that top 3 or 5 as we expected. Some of the faces we challenged that we said, hey, maybe you can get there if you put it together, they seem to be the ones who started the narrative off in Split 1, which is pretty exciting, especially from games 1 to 3. We set the tone with some new names showing up, but games 4, 5, and 6 that we just saw on World's Edge, let's walk through those final circles, fellas, because I was there casting game 4. We saw kind of the beginning of what turned out to be a pretty dominant back half across a pretty dominant day with Element 6 and Case winning. But we can't forget, Onset, how well ANC Outplayed was also playing. They continued to play this well. It started off a lot here, though, in game 4 and holding this truck.
Yeah, I mean, you can see they had the opportunity here to win this game. They have a Kraber. E6 are already fighting this in this situation, but I think them outputting damage onto this fight to look for some KP, that's what created the opening for E6. You can see see them. Look, they're starting to just sneak up a little bit here. The gold armor, I think, is very important in these fights as well to get those quick kills. But Shakes is retreating here, and this was where the knock came in. It's a 3-man peak, or is it a 2-man peak, as CJ, or Cracked as he likes to be known, gets that first knock, and then in the end game, when you've got a 2v3, you're usually in a position to win it if you don't misstep. And E6, big kill points in that game, and also first place as well.
Yeah, Dan, game 5, he took the mic right back. Walk us through what ended up being the story. We saw Graceful, JMW, and Tyler FPS put one together.
Yeah, an early rotation from Cold and finding Godspot, as it were, in this final circle. It was just a matter of letting players come to them, but also dealing damage from a distance and being patient. And in the end, they were rewarded for that patience. But it's also about knowing when it's go time, when you get that call, when you're in that final circle and you know you can deal damage and you can influence those fights, and that positioning here from Graceful, just to take angles, just to be able to do damage from a certain area, means that it's not going to be a comfortable reset for any team. And it was a funny ending because we heard it through the comms and the listening of Cold. They were like, oh, he's dead. Okay, good job. After such an intense final circle, it was an interesting ending for them.
It certainly was. This one, you could hear the screams of agony. We cut to the Element 6 talk through as they went into that final zone. They were thwarted by that solo player who ended K-Swinney's march to more points and a dominant win. Did they do enough? That's the question. We're going to find out in just a moment as we hit the final series results after this. Ultimately, Orgless and Hungry had a slim chance as well. Could they get 5 out of the 6 kills? Ultimately grab first place. It ended up being too much for them. And the tried and true, the second place overall, a lot in today, but first place, multiple opportunities. ANC outplayed. They continued to outplay this team that did not get mentioned in the pre-show. I'm going to keep saying it again and put some love on their name, some respect on their name. ANC outplayed. They played one heck of a start here in Split 1. I cannot wait to see this team continue this, because not only are they showing they can win games, they're showing they're consistently in the mix in the final zones. And our first reaction to a day that certainly went the way of K-Swinney and Element 6. 61 points, first place, right behind them. ANC outplayed and Orgless and Hungry Mark.
Yeah, very, very tight. That's what I'm looking at with the leaderboards, right? We were talking about bonus points and the new rule. Forget about that, because you've got to establish yourself as a dominant force in the lobby to even think about that. E6 are the ones who come out on top, just about managed to get enough KP in that last game to force themselves across that threshold, but ANC outplayed right in behind them. But I gotta say, that looks like one of the closest lobbies for like differential of points between placements that we've seen in quite some time. And I think you usually look and you're saying, hey, were people playing some good Apex? Maybe some teams were throwing. I think the fact that you have Alliance down in 14th, Vamos Querer down in 15th, you know, very established names, I think it shows that everyone stepped their game up a little bit here in EMEA. And I think we're going to have some more questions to be answered as we head into week number 2.
And did this answer a lot of questions for you, or did this raise more questions?
I think the biggest question that it answered for me is, are teams who have made changes, are they going to be able to find success, or are they going to struggle? And I think we saw from Outplayed, one of the few teams who actually stayed as a roster, they really benefited. They had that natural chemistry and they were able to work with what they had already learned and grown together, whereas some teams who had just been kind of meshed together, struggling a little bit in the early stages. So I think that's the only thing we truly learned. But there were a few teams who have made changes that did find success, like Element 6, for example. I mean, we've got to take our hats off to them with the new roster, K-Swinney at the helm, and they showed us what they're made of once again.
You know, one thing I will say I loved about the top 10 was that the 3 teams we challenged, from LVH to No Days Off to 40% Worse, it's basically you have to prove it today. They all reached the top 10, 7, 8, 9, and 10 in terms of their placement. So hats off to them. But of course, you can't all be the winners. You can't all be the cool kids, so to speak. When, you know, you look at someone has some style, some shades. These are ALGS, by the way, branded. So, you know, if you were a chance, maybe you got them.
You got the sunglasses.
Maybe not.
I got to step it up next week. I mean,
listen. At the end of the day, this is just because sometimes we got to point out somebody who's just a little cooler than the bunch. That's right. It's time for the MVP of today. We've been working behind the scenes while Mark and Dan were giving you their amazing commentary over it. We had to go ahead and find who deserved the day 1 Split 1 MVP vote, and I think you guys could see it coming a mile away. It was close at the end. It had us sweating. but it always seemed to be after this game 4 and this performance that it was going to be someone on Element 6, and it's none other than K Swinney, putting together the squad of Slab and of Cracked. After coming back from last season at Champs, a little disappointed. One of the more important teams in all of EMEA, in Europe specifically, the French native, ended up getting 13th place at championships in the finals after taking 3rd place in the losers round 2 to make it there. He had higher hopes than he achieved, but this season he's off to the races, and you can tell not just from the damage dealt, nearly 6K on the day, 12 kills, 15 assists. This is a true competitor, and K Swinney has been one of our, I think, most elegant top performers that we've seen in the ALGS. He's done it in a way that isn't flashy necessarily. It isn't always someone who needs the limelight, but he just gets the job done and he helps bring people up with him. And so that's why, Mark and Dan, he gets our MVP today. I want to just say, impressed with how he showed up with Element 6 as well, showing up. Dan, I'm going to start with you on their performance today.
Yeah, I think that when you make those changes, there is always going to be the question of, is it going to work? But sometimes an IGL has a vision of how things are going to play out, whether that be the composition or whether that be the rotations. But it clearly worked for E6 today. They were working in tandem so well. Their shot prioritization was great. They were always focusing the same things, and that's why they were so successful in a lot of their 3v3 fights. So I'm glad K Swinney's on top again, and I'm sure the E6 Ultras who featured at LAN events will be very happy, but I'm slightly terrified because maybe that fan base is going to get even bigger because they were very loud in the arena.
I mean, even rowdier, it shouldn't be anything crazy. Mark, you're probably at an Arsenal game every other weekend now, so it shouldn't be that big of a difference.
Get tickets, dude, it's impossible. I mean,
is it really?
Yeah.
Somebody's got to help him out. Somebody out there, get my boy, some tickets. I heard there's some good results recently though, so we'll keep it up. And I mean, I think at the end of the day too, K Swinney, this could be his year. He's definitely been someone on the cusp of having that level of dynasty in EMEA that people look to with reverence, akin to maybe TSM in North America. It's hard to reach those heights, but certainly Alliance in EMEA. Element 6 may be on the cusp of creating that, especially with a great start here. I know we're going to have a chance to speak with K Swinney very, very soon. I'm not sure if he's ready yet, but if he is, let's bring him on. If not, I'm gonna keep talking about him here in this solo. So my ultimate thought process around the way that we look at this kind of end to this day is not just how K Swinney and them narrowly with 2 points got it out, but really the way that they did it, because we came into this meta with a Bloodhound. We came into this meta thinking that would not be played because it was Bangalore, Horizon, Catalyst. Maybe you would see a Watson varied here, a Conduit, surely. But not only have they taken this split by storm in the first day, they've also done it in a very interesting way. I think there's some conversations I want to have on why, utilizing some of these characters like the Bloodhound, for instance, on Slab is something that they're, consistently going with. They certainly give up a lot of verticality and potential in terms of movement by picking up that character. But Mark, I mean, just quickly leaning into it before we bring him on, it is an interesting way to counter the Bangalore smokes and say, we even saw Graceful do it. We don't need to have digi threats. And now we have a team-wide solution for if we are in a final engagement with smokes all around.
Yeah, I think it's one of those situations where also you got to remember as well, we're not in a heavy scan meta. And whenever something isn't a heavy style of meta, if you kind of dip your toe into that pool, it can become a little bit more influential in a lobby, right? You mentioned how the Bangalore smokes can kind of be negated. You can find where a team is. You give yourself a chance in those fights if you don't have the digi threat, and we know how powerful the digi threat is in those smoke-based fights with Bangalore's involved, but it gives you not only a footing in the fight to maybe force that player away, but it also makes sure that your back is clear, right? It's a very simple thing to say, but we saw TR1C ratting inside of a tunnel today. We saw, August and Hungry trying to make that same play as well. And if you have the Bloodhound, if you are making a rotate and you want to clear a path, it's a very simple way to do so. Plus, we all know the fragging ability you have in the ultimate. So it's a pick that certainly makes sense. I think with a lot of compositions that you're seeing this season, does this pick make sense for the way we want to approach this game? That's why you're seeing so much variance. That's why you're seeing different legends and compositions kind of working together. And again, a Bloodhound in a lobby that doesn't have many Bloodhounds in becomes significantly more impactful. So you can see why it's been picked.
I mean, that's the way I would think about it too, Dan. It kind of reminds me of Caustic in some ways. There's a ton of value in these hyper-specific scenarios that the meta is giving you. Whether it's Caustic, you get to late game, you have the ability to basically just win if you find yourself in an enclosed space on World's Edge and you have barrels around. But you also sometimes do not get the advantages that come with playing maybe a little bit more of a flexible team. As these maps have gotten bigger, we've had more elevation around. I mean, what is your take? Do you think Bloodhound is more of a quick fix, a simple solution, or do you think this is the future of where we're heading towards with the meta?
I think that whilst there is a lot of Bangalores, Bloodhound is a great counter to that, but what do you lose by not playing something else? I think that's what teams have to consider here. Are we now losing the capability to put Watson Gen down, for example? Are we losing the ability to have a Dark Veil available to us by playing this Bloodhound? Because you've got to give something up to change your composition. And if you are going to be playing Bloodhound, then arguably you might have to play a little bit more aggressive. Maybe you're playing Edge, but by being aggressive, sometimes you can find yourself in a zone location. Look at what Cold did in that game, right? They were aggressively forcing their way into